got a decent voice, pretty good songwriter. He's like, but you don't have that one song that like is gonna put you on the map. There's nothing really interesting about you.
How do you take the criticism like that?
I didn't let that deflate me. I went back and I scrapped my solo record.
No way.
I love music because it's a universal language, you know, and we all get to add our note to time's treble clef. As a music maker, it's this really unique responsibility. Happiness, I think, is a very temporal thing. It's very like an itch, you know, that you need to scratch. Or joy is got like this.
It's a constant feeling.
It's a constant. It's a power. It's you know, joy and grief are friends. The depth of my grief is the depth of my joy. And so the more that I tend to the hard stuff in my life, it makes my joy more powerful, more real, more felt. You know, the words "I love you," right? They're very simple words, and we've heard those words in 1,000 songs. But there's some songs where those 3 words are used, and for some reason it hits us differently. There's a whole world in our words. You know, my dream one day is to be on a big stage and look over and
you see them.
See them. It's like, you know, wink. I need to succeed so they succeed.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Hit Record episode. We have another guest, and his name is Quinn Erwin. But I'm gonna have you say your name to that camera right there.
All right, hey guys, I'm Quinn Erwin, and yeah, I'm so stoked to be here, Kino. Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for driving all the way here. By the way, this is a
that's a cup.
Yes,
it's actually a cup. That's actually, it's funny because I saw that on the table initially, and I was like, looked at it for a second. I was like, well, that's a cool lens. And then I kind of, you know, leaned over and I was like, oh, that is not a lens.
The other guest, Summer. By the way, the episode will be coming out soon. So stay tuned for that. Summer, she kept wondering why I kept holding it and not do anything with it. And
okay.
Then when I did this,
so she thought like, I wonder if she thought you were messing with her or something, or
no. Most people think they get a cup until I drink it.
Okay, got it.
But anyways, so thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, man, this is awesome.
Yeah, and so this episode, guys, we're gonna be talking about a lot of things, ranging from his musical career to music licensing and how you can apply what he learned throughout his journey into your own career as well. And yeah, stay tuned for it for the rest of the conversation. Now, before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe to this YouTube video on YouTube. You can also follow us on Instagram, hit record. All the other social platforms are all going to be in the description below. I am not going to list out every one of them, but if you want to follow, it's all in the description. So, are you ready for this, Quinn?
Kino, bring it on, man.
All right. Here we go. So, Quinn, tell us who you are, what you do, your mission in life as a creative, and the early influences that sparked your interest as a musician, and how you express your creativity.
Okay, so I'm Quinn, obviously. I said that, Quinn Erwin. And I am a working musician and artist, and I've been at this for over a decade, which is really wild to say that. But I have been making music since I was about 15. So
wow.
Yeah, 15. But I would say that my interest in music is like farther back than that. My dad was a drummer, so I grew up with my dad playing drums. And he played in church, so I would go with him as a whippersnapper. And my parents split pretty early, so it's kind of like I was, you know, bouncing between the two of them. But when I was with my dad, he would play. He's also in the Navy, so he moved around a lot. So I had a lot of different experiences with him playing instruments. So he was a drummer and a percussionist. So depending on where he was at, he'd either play the kit or he'd have like bongos and congas and shakers and rattles and all kinds of stuff. And he had really interesting, it still does, musical taste. So I grew up with a lot of world music, and I also grew up with a lot of like Genesis and Toto and like a lot of like
Toto Africa,
like 80s, like really cool 80s music. I know that Genesis, people gave Genesis a really hard time at a certain point.
I've never heard of that, actually.
Well, I mean, I think because Phil Collins and Genesis, like to some people were overplayed. Like it became like soft radio basically.
Okay.
But I think that's silly. I think Genesis is amazing.
But then again, music on it in and of itself is always gonna be evolving, and
Yeah.
so yes, it could be overplayed, but
Yeah.
not one music. There will never be a music that will, in my opinion, that stays the same. It always takes on a different form of.
Yeah. Well, I think my dad liked Genesis because I think in a way like he views Genesis. And if my dad ever listens or sees this, he can correct me if I'm wrong. But Genesis is kind of like an underdog band.
Okay.
Like they were, early Genesis is very like prog rocky, and then eventually Genesis is like more like radio. Once they had a membership change in the band, but I like the whole canon personally. Peter Gabriel was the original lead singer of Genesis. So yeah. So
are they like on the same level as the big name artists or bands at the time, like Queen?
Yeah. Like
AC/DC?
you're like you're gonna know back in that time, Yes, Pink Floyd, like a lot of those kind of prog rocky, acts or whatever. Genesis would have been known like a lot of those bands, and they were just kind of doing their own thing. So anyway,
You're good.
yeah. So, but beyond that, when I was with my mom,
Yes.
it was a lot of like 80s radio. So there's like Tears for Fears, Madonna, Michael Jackson, So and then my mom was a single mom, and she moved us in with my grandparents, and so when I lived with my grandparents, I got really close to my uncle, who's only like 9 years older than me.
Okay.
So he's kind of like my big brother. He's like he's more like a brother than an uncle, and so he's a teenager, and I'm growing up in the MTV generation. So like I'm seeing Bon Jovi and Poison, the Talking Heads, and Peter Gabriel on MTV. So David Bowie, like all this new thing with videos and music videos and stuff, right? I'm like growing up watching this. So music is, in that sense, is like really fascinating to me because it's got that visual component. And so, as I'm growing up, I'm always listening to the radio, always interested in music. When I was with my dad, I would try to jump behind the kit.
Yeah.
I was always humming stuff or trying to put words and melody together, but it's not, it's like, it's an instinct, but it's not like I know this is a thing you do. You can have a career with this necessarily, right? But inevitably as a kid, I like in like third grade, I asked my mom if I can invite some friends over and form a group.
Oh,
so
okay.
so we had some, and it like quickly devolved into us like chasing each other around my grandparents' house. So nothing ever came of it. But so music was always in my life. It was a thing I enjoyed. It was something that moved me.
Would you say your father? How has he said anything about whenever he listened to your own interpretation of your own music and how you express your
voice? I mean, we've definitely had conversations.
Yeah.
My dad and I had a little bit more of an intimate connection with music outside of just him being a musician. Like I grew up in the church, and my dad had a ministry, and so I was doing things with music in his ministry. So there was a lot of conversation happening then, and then a lot of conversation happening around like when I started writing my own stuff and wanting to have my own voice and sing about whatever I wanted to sing about, write about whatever I wanted about. And so there was a lot of conversation in that sense, and like there would be arguments about what I want to listen to versus what he's okay with, or stuff like that. And
I can imagine with the ministry, especially when you start listening to like rock bands, where and from my initial impression, because from what I've seen is like whenever people from a religious background, when they get exposed to the other genres of music, it tends to solidify to them like, it's not a good kind of music. Like they automatically put that as
I get
a stamp.
That. It's okay. So it's an interesting thing because my dad, obviously my parents were split, and their perspectives on God and their perspectives on music were slightly different.
Yeah.
And so they're my dad's journey with God and how that affected like what he listened to or what he consumed was different than my mom. And so depending on what household I was in, I had access to different things. And in the 90s, like there's a lot of amazing music happening. Nirvana's a huge part of that time. You've got like Tupac, you've got Biggie, and I remember being in 6th grade and singing Gin and Juice, which I didn't have any idea what that was or what it meant, but like, I mean, like, and being a kid, there's like you're consuming anything you can get your hands on, and so when I'm living with my mom, that's a lot of what's happening. I'm getting stuff from her, and then my uncle, like he's feeding me stuff. So I like remember hearing Pearl Jam for the first time because of him. Jimi Hendrix for the first time because of him. The Beatles, and so I think with my dad, there was just a time where he was trying to cut anything out of his life that just didn't feel like it was helpful to his journey with God, and I mean, frankly, I was into that for a moment. I was like, is there a it's kind of odd. Like at the time, like people were trying to find like Christian substitutes for things.
Right.
So there were like things that were available, and I just remember as I sort of journeyed into that, how like it was kind of tough because it was like it didn't, like you said, it didn't sound as good. There was something about it that felt like not quite XYZ. But then you have like subcultures that sort of crop out of that. So there was like a bunch of artists that were, like they were Christians, but they were making music that felt more like secular mainstream. I don't really like the whole secular sacred divide. So maybe like mainstream. That's what I use as mainstream. Because I believe everything is sacred, everything is spiritual, no matter if you're singing about sex or you're singing about God, whatever it is, like there's a component to music that's other, right? So, but yes, like at the time, it was almost like I was either like sneaking that stuff into the house, and they would ask me, but I'm like, no, these guys are Christians, and they were like squinting at me, like, But then I got older, and then I was able to like make decisions where I was like, I want to branch out a little bit more. So I think like, toward the end of high school and college, it's like I'm starting to absorb things back into my world from, the outside, if you want to put that in quotes. And so like at the time, Radiohead is important, Coldplay is very important. Like at that point, there's a band called Appleseed Cast. That was really important for me. Sigaros, just to name a few bands. And
it sounds like you had a lot of exposure to all kinds of musical.
Yeah, man. And I just want to say that, like, I think that I am grateful to have grown up in the church, because of the culture around music. And I think it can be a double-edged sword. I think that on some aspects of it, it can be limiting. Like if you're talking about like, well, you shouldn't listen to this and you shouldn't listen to that. On the other hand, there's something about church music, I think, that trains us as humans to like access the more in life. That it's credited to St. Augustine. He said something like, to make music is to pray twice. That is the melody itself, the music itself is a prayer, and the words are also a prayer. And I think that, if I want to take a very abstract thought on what that means, I think that music is in my opinion, the most powerful art form because it accesses like the whole human. And science tells us this, that music and BPMs and stuff, like they physiologically sort of tune you up, it taps into your mind and your emotions and your heart and all that stuff. And so, if prayer is very simply like asking for help or letting your longing sort of come to the surface, whatever that longing might be, and your longing makes you more present in the now, right? Like where you are. Then I think Augustine's right, and I think that's one of the cool things about music in churches is that's an on purpose thing. That's like a I think healthy churches teach that, like, hey, we're singing these songs and they're making us more present with what's going on and with ourselves and ultimately with God. If you want to call God that, whatever word you have for.
It's like a vehicle. It's a vehicle for all creative people to bridge the gap between the connection of emotional and whatever they want to hear. Like you said, with the emotion, especially when we're going something that's very hard to get through.
Right.
And when we listen to music, there's something about just listening to something that can be easily relatable.
Yeah.
It alleviates all that. It's
a release. It's catharsis.
Yes. Yeah. I was trying to find a good word for it.
And one of the questions you asked is like, what's your mission in making art?
Yeah.
And I think that, my mission, the reason I want to make art is to create catharsis for people. I want to make things that are, like the word is ecstatic. I want to make things that connect people to that deeper reality, deeper love, deeper hope, deeper peace. And, that's not limited to my faith, or I'm going to sing about a lot of different things and use a lot of different metaphors and lyrical content or whatever to describe my version of what that is. I happen to believe in a spiritual reality, and I'm not trying to preach at people with that or try to convince them of what they need to believe, but I am hopeful that what I make would connect people to that deeper place within themselves and the deeper place in their friendships and in their love relationships or whatever, and for them to feel aligned.
There's always a voice for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always one voice.
Yeah.
Wow, guys.
So for me, that's the mission. Is that's the gift. That's part of the gift that I get to offer, the world. And thank God for all the other artists, music makers in the world who have their thing that they bring to the conversation.
Yeah.
And I love music because it's a universal language, and we all get to add our note to time's treble clef. We all get to if as a music maker, it's this really unique responsibility. I feel it's a responsibility.
It sounds like it's definitely a big responsibility.
It feels a responsibility. Yeah. It's something I take very seriously, something I want to do well, something I want to do authentically, something, like I want to make sure that my offering to the musical landscape is true from me and not me trying to mimic somebody else.
We don't need another Michael Jackson. There's only one Quinn Erwin. Did I say your last name right?
Quinn Erwin. Yep, you got it.
I have a speech impediment, guys. Hearing loss.
You're all right. You good.
So that is just one question, guys. That shows to you how insightful this conversation will be. But there's a lot.
That's a really great compliment. I appreciate that.
No, seriously, because just like what you said about music, when people listen to a conversation between two people, sometimes when we're all caught up in our head about a certain thing, sometimes hearing from a different perspective from two people will always add value to how they can make a decision of how they feel about something. And what you said about, bridging the gap between music and your musical influences from your mom and your dad and your uncle, it just seems like it's culminating towards the one person that we see here today, which is Quinn Erwin. I'm gonna call you Quinn from now on. But
no. I think it's a really important thing.
Yeah.
My job as an artist is to take my whole history and pour it into what I'm making. Like I was having this conversation with someone the other day where it's like, the words "I love you," right? They're very simple words, and we've heard those words in 1,000 songs, million times, right? But it's like, but there's some songs where those 3 words are used, and for some reason it hits us differently. And I think like, sometimes in songwriting, I like flip flop between trying to like say something in a completely new way, and then just being straightforward and using, in this case, let's just say that like the 3 words "I love you." I think what makes those words different and what makes those words like hit like in a different way is when those words are filled with my history, or those words are filled with your history, right? It's like something, that's when the magic happens.
And when you share your history with someone who has a similar history,
there's a resonation. Yeah.
No, this will be censored. Things will fly off the handle. And have you heard of the song Dean Lewis? How do I say goodbye?
I think so. Yeah. Get you?
I recently lost my grandma this last year.
Dude, I'm so sorry, man.
But
I've lost grandparents myself, and it's devastating. Especially, I assume you were close to your grandmother.
She was the one who raised me with my hearing loss when my parents had to, work on their career.
Yeah.
And what you said about the simple words, and then I think about that song, How Do I Say Goodbye by Dean Lewis. Goodbye on its own seems like every day you walk out the door, say, "Hey, goodbye, guys. I'll see you later." But when you have the history of that's filled with loss, and
there's a whole world in our words, and
yes,
and if you know someone and you know their story, their context or whatever, when they say the words, if you know their world, and their world is in the words, and I know for me as an artist that's what I'm hoping to show people with what I write. And I think that like you said, if I'm doing the job well, then all of a sudden there's other people that can resonate with my story. And that's when there's a reciprocal thing happening, like all of a sudden, like we heal each other in a way, right?
And that goes in hand with your mission to make people feel seen and heard.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
With using music as a vehicle to do that, and that's why it's one of the greatest art forms.
I love what you just said, to make people feel seen and heard. I want people to feel known. I want them to. I think as far as like my music, or my art, whatever I'm making, because honestly, I don't know if you know this, but visual art was my first love before music. Yeah, so I spent some time like illustrating and drawing, and then eventually that led into a little bit of graphic design, and so that definitely influences like what I make with art. And I also want to say, like, I love what you said about hearing other people's perspectives, and I would add, especially if it's coming from a different medium.
Yes,
I love to talk to filmmakers, and I love to talk to photographers, and I love to talk to like mixed media artists or whatever, because their process is listening to the way that they process what they're making. It helps me a lot, like reframe what I do. Sometimes it gives me a different angle, a different tool to try. So I think it's really vital. So I'm like really grateful for my background and other things too. But I think as far as my music, I think like the big word for me is joy. I think I think that what I intend to do ultimately is to bring joy, and joy to me is different than happiness. Happiness, I think, is a very temporal thing. It's very like an itch, that you need to scratch. Or joy is got like this.
It's a constant feeling.
It's a constant. It's a power. It's joy and grief are friends. And I say that something that helps me out. Because at my unhealthiest, I like to distract myself from the hard feelings, right? I have to like choose to dig into the hard stuff. And so I say the depth of my grief is the depth of my joy. And so the more that I tend to the hard stuff in my life, it makes my joy more substantial. Like it's the substance of my joy is more powerful, more real, more felt, not only by me, but I think others too.
I want to add on to that.
Come on, man.
But
Come on, Kino.
I want to add on to that by saying that there's something also beautiful about the music that we share. You know, when we talk about the negative stuff, and we have to shield to people. It's already up and we're already prepared to say the PR version of what we want to say.
Yeah.
But with music, when we're on our own, we just let those all that down and being able to just be with everything, the grief, the sadness, and just letting that blend together with what we hear.
Yeah. I think
absolutely healing right there.
I think you're right. Well, I think for a lot of us, the art that we love the most is the art, especially music. The music that we love the most is the music where we felt like the person really lived like what they were singing about, and they were able to, go there. They were able to be fully vulnerable in a way that feels like they really put their heart on the table.
Yeah.
And I think that when we find those artists, like you said, it's almost like they give us the words for our own experiences. There we go.
Sorry.
Was that it?
No, I'm sorry. I love what that was, because oftentimes we have emotions that we just cannot find the words to.
Right.
And then when they finally do it, that's like almost a responsibility and a power and a gift.
Yeah.
And shit. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to censor this part.
I'm into it, Kino. I'm into it. Yeah, and so I think I think my responsibility. I think it's every artist's responsibility is to be able to communicate about the real stuff from their authentic place and from their superpower, if you want to put that in quotes. So it's like there's certain things that I am not going to be the best at writing about.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to be, and I could try to mimic it all day long, but you wouldn't believe it. So, I have to find my lane and I allow that lane to be full of me and my experience and my wrestling matches and my thoughts and stuff. And I think I think people, when I'm doing that as an artist, that's when I think that people are able to identify or see me.
Yeah.
And when you can be seen as an artist, that means that I think that's when people gravitate toward what you're making, is because all of a sudden your voice as an artist is the most distinct it's going to be.
It just punches through the noise of everything that just seems to be generic and doesn't
That's
have
right.
meaning.
That's right. And I think it takes a long time as an artist to shed your influences. I think the bands or the artists that have influenced me the most, I'm grateful for them. The whole reason that they became the anchors to me is because I felt like they represented me. They were my character in the world. I could look at, Chris Martin and be like, that guy is me. That's the way he feels about the world, and I remember where I was when I heard Yellow the first time. I remember listening to their first record Parachutes. I was like, I was like an out of body experience, because it was like for the first time it was like, I don't know, at the time I was like, I don't know what this guy is doing, but I feel like he's like the soundtrack in my head. It's like all the words he's using, the way those words feel.
Yeah.
And I've had similar experiences with other writers and artists where it's like, that guy is me, or that girl is me. And I think that the reason why those people are more recognizable is because they're fully embodied. It's like somehow they hit that vein in themselves where like it's the most them they could be. You tracking with me on that?
Yeah, shedding.
It's like I've shed all my influences. I've shed like who you think I sound like.
Yeah.
And I just sound like me now. Now I needed to like all the great art, the masters or whatever, like a lot of people don't know this. Picasso was one of the greatest portraiture artists in the world.
Yeah.
Before he birthed, Cubism or whatever movement he did. And so he was obviously studying other masters, learning their techniques, became the best at it, and then he broke the rules. So I think like that's I think it's a good metaphor for what it is to find your voice as an artist, is that you have to trace the steps. You have to live in the house of the artist that you're drawn to or respect. You learn how they make things, and then you start to like riff off of that in your own way. So I fully expect when people listen to what I make to identify the camp or the stream that I come from, but eventually what they should hear is me,
Okay.
I hope I'm not jumping ahead, by the way.
No, you're good. No. You haven't even gotten past it. I remember we've already got. No, I'm serious. Those are great answers.
Okay, cool.
And I wanted to add on that, by the way, which is that now, disclaimer: I'm not as well versed into the religion. Okay.
Oh, okay. We're gonna talk about that. Okay.
what I heard is that I've always heard that people say that nothing comes from something, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Using that as an analogy, we started out as nothing, and then when we have influences, we take something, and then once you shed them, what it may look like at the beginning was just a copycat version of what we love, and then it takes time to really just shed all of them to become something new. And that's hard. That's even harder to do, I would imagine, as an artist and all different forms of media. It becomes harder to do that when everything else is just already a copycat version of one thing or other. And when you finally, just like what you said with Coldplay, to finally get to that point of being able to just be you, it's... Do you feel like you reached at that point yet, or are you still shedding your influences in your 10-year journey as an artist?
I feel like what I'm doing with my band Saint Social is the closest that I've gotten to it. Yeah. And I mean, and that's not to say that things in the past aren't there either.
Yeah.
But I think that right now, I think that my voice sounds the best. I feel like my emotions and my history are lining up with what I'm writing more than ever, the way I'm singing it more than ever. And like I really think I'm making something distinct. And when it comes to like my band Saint Social, we're about to release our record this year, our debut record. Yay! Dude, we're unbelievably like chomping at the bit to get this thing out.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of it. I think like it's like one of the best first things I've ever made. But I would say that I think that the voice of Saint Social, if I'm to look at the band as like its own animal, I think that it will be more defined by record 2. And the reason why I think that happens is because like, it's kind of like you have to make something, you have to do something. You have to have like the record's not a rough draft, so don't get me wrong.
Right.
But you have to make a rough draft to like look at the parts of it that could be better.
Right.
Or look at the parts you want to expound on and like dial up more. And so I think for a lot of bands, and including mine, this first record, while it is a very, in my opinion, unique, I feel like it's unique in that I feel like I said, I'm being the truest version of myself. This is the band I've always wanted to be in, with the people I want to be in it with. this is my writing voice, doing, I think, what it needs to do right now. But I think that once we have time to live with the record and see like what other people feel about it, we get to like almost become like a third party, like objective. Yeah. It's almost like in the making of the music, it has its own life, So we get to see what this kid, like what we could dial up about this kid, like what we could zone in on and be like, I think we need more songs like that, or man, I really want to explore this tone more, or man, I really want to explore this topic more. And so I don't know that every artist is like that. That's just my thing. Like I want to be able to like step back, enjoy what it is, and then say, I think if I did this and this next time, this will make the voice of what this is like even better, even stronger, even more unique.
So basically, your whole what Saint Social, every album, every song you put out is in a way amplifying the parts that you want to improve, so that when you take a step back, Saint Social on its own, it's already becoming closer to the band that you had in mind.
Out of the gate. Well, I've been out of this. I've been at this a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that with this band, I took all the lessons that I've learned over the course of my career in music, and not that I'm skipping steps, but I'm like applying everything I learned to this new thing with some really great friends and people that I have like very deep history with, So there's something special about that. There's chemistry in this band that comes from like a very deep knowing,
And with that, you will be able to create the songs that actually connect with them, because all the hard work that you put into that, it just
Saint
like giving a baby to the world, man.
No, Saint Social is not me. Like the music I'm making with Saint Social is like about what I've been through in the last couple of years. Yes. So it's personal. It's taking all of my influences, right? But like me coming from a certain stream, but it's fully me embodying the music that my version of it, my riff off of it, right? And it's also four guys making music that feels like where we live. We wanted to make music that like filled a gap in our community, a sound that was missing, a sound that was something that we were into, and we wanted our take on that sound to have the flavor of the Gulf Coast, and so like I was very intentional, we were very intentional as we were working on the music to make sure that it did those things.
Yeah.
So like now that it's done, it's like we get to step back and be like, man, it's awesome. It does all those things. It like down to the letter, man, like the words I'm using feel like here, I'm using particular images. I'm pulling images from, that I see in my everyday life, living where I live. And I think that's another part of what makes it distinct. It's not me living, where I live and trying to write like I live in New York City. You understand what I'm saying? It's
trying
like
to pretend that you have these experiences that aren't even yours.
Yeah, or
you haven't lived it. You haven't lived a life that really connects to your music.
Or just even like there's things that a band in New York City can sing about because of the people groups that live there, or the landscape and the geography of the place. Like maybe you can get away with being a little bit more abstract or artsy in a way, or like just even like the sound of the music. Like, when I think of New York, I think of like the Strokes, or right now Bleachers. I think of Bleachers a lot, even though he's from New Jersey. I think of like the National is one of my favorite bands that I love, that have a deep connection to New York City. There's things that they can sing about and music that they can make that feels very like
True
to that place, built into the
Yes.
fabric of that place. Whereas like, the music that we're making is clearly coming from a certain stream of music that we gravitate toward, but it's, run through the lens of living here. Like the Killers. I love the Killers. We all love the Killers in our band. Brandon Flowers talks about how like the Killers is Bruce Springsteen through the Strip in Las Vegas. So when you listen to the Killers music, it's like you can hear the obvious like tip of the hat to the Boss's stream, but it also feels like Las Vegas. It's like they dialed certain things up a little bit more to give it their version, their flavor, their riff off of it.
Yeah.
So, the guys and I wanted to do that in our way, and for our music to feel like there's connecting points in our music that I think like people will enjoy if they like certain bands, but we wanted to make something that was all us. So I think we did it. I think we did it. Time will tell.
when can people expect that album to drop though?
It'll come out in August. The full record will come out in August. We're going to be releasing a couple singles and an EP all throughout the year. And those the first single that will come out in March.
Stay tuned, guys. And do you have a discount code? Because H&R 30. If you want that, we can get you 30% off. Use H&R. Hit record. 30% off. I'm joking.
That's cool, man. I mean, hey.
No.
Yeah,
That's
as long as we,
wow.
So we're gonna be releasing
Damn.
pieces and parts of it through the year. And man, the other thing is like we've been playing these songs now for a couple years.
Yeah.
So like a lot of our connection and socials, while being very small, is still very like rooted and grounded in like where we are. Like those are real people, that are following us and that we've built up over the course of the past few years, playing these songs and beginning to share them from that vantage point too. So the hope is that when we finally release this stuff, that
it sounds like
that people are ready for it. That
Yeah.
the people that we're in front of are ready for it, and hopefully that spreads around. That there's more people who hear it because people love it and want to share it.
Okay, we're gonna take a 2-minute break, and then I'll get you a full glass of water. Okay.
Great.
No, that's also one more thing, guys. If you don't know about Saint Social, they were playing around here, especially the Gulf Coast event. I forgot the name of that place. The event, it was the Gulf Coast at the stadium church thingy.
Are you talking about Golf Fest?
Yes, Golf Fest. That's how I.
That's how we met.
Yes, that's how I met. And between outside of that, and also we've had conversations before, and I gotta say, Quinn, I'm really proud of the transformation and the growth that.
Oh, thanks, man.
Seriously, y'all don't know what I saw. It's fucking awesome. No, seriously, I'm really proud of you.
Thanks, man. Thank you. That means a lot to me, man.
Okay.
I think you're the bee's knees too.
What?
I said I think you're the bee's knees too.
Bee's knees?
Yeah,
What
it's
is
a idiom. It means I think you're awesome.
I learned something today. Bee's knees.
Bee's.
Okay. Welcome back, guys. We just took a quick break. As you can see, we has coffee. What kind of coffee do we get? I do not know.
So your dad said something about I don't think this is hazelnut. So it's good though.
We probably packed it all away.
It's black. It's black coffee. It's good. It's good for me.
Coffee makes him sleep.
Coffee at this point, I think it helps me. It doesn't have like a negative effect on me.
Fair. It's just I'm kind of jealous of people that can drink it and not get sleepy. I don't know why.
That's weird, dude. I have never heard that in my life.
It's like
I have never heard of anyone drinking coffee and feeling sleepy. Really?
Yes. There was a drive that I had to. I think all the way to Jacksonville during Christmas. My girlfriend told me to get the Starbucks latte, something latte. I finish it. I'm already starting to feel woozy. My body ate me for caffeine, apparently.
Apparently, man. Okay.
Okay, diving right back into this video. I hope you're enjoying this. If you are, don't forget to follow the socials. It's literally on the description and below. And where can people find you?
Well, you can find my band at Saint Social Official most places, and you can find me pretty much anywhere at Quinn Erwin, Quinn.
Is it like Facebook, X,
ERWIN? Yeah, on all the places.
Tumblr?
You know what, man? I was on Tumblr once. Actually, my website is currently handled by Tumblr.
What?
My QuinnErwin.com or whatever it is
I didn't even
on Tumblr. Yeah.
I didn't even notice that. I just clicked on the link.
Well, I mean, it's not a Tumblr link. It's so like it's.
But the company owns.
No, it doesn't. It hosts it, I guess.
Okay, Tumblr's still around.
Apparently,
I did not know that. I did not know that. Okay, Tumblr, more power to you, man. Okay, all right. So, you ready?
Let's do it.
Balancing between a music career and fatherhood is challenging. Walk us through your experience as a father, and how has that influenced your music and from a creative perspective, and how you manage to, balance both of those responsibilities.
I think the biggest thing I would say to start talking about that is what was really interesting, and I think this is a pretty common experience for a lot of people.
Okay.
Is when you get married or you decide to partner up with somebody, sometimes people will say like, oh, your life's gonna change. Everything's gonna be different now, and it sounds like so ominous. Like there's the phrase like, oh, this is my ball and chain, and then you like get into the mix with your significant other, in this case my wife, and it's like, this is awesome. And I think it's awesome. It's a lot of hard work, right? But it's awesome because we choose to make it awesome. We don't allow the partnership to take away from the life we want to live. We don't let the partnership to take away from like our individual goals or dreams.
Okay.
Right. And you find a way to like bring those things together. I think likewise, when you're about to have kids, people are like, oh man, everything's about to change, and the approach that my wife and I took when we had kids was like, we don't want to think about it like that.
Okay.
We want our kids to be part of the adventure.
Okay.
We want our kids to be part of the good things in life. And just because they're around, it doesn't need to take away from our individual dreams and goals. And so how does everybody win? And what I mean by that is like not only me, but my wife and our kids. How do we blend all of our, aspirations and the stuff we're good at into the fabric of family? Right. So that being said, as an artist, my kids are not a hindrance to my art. They're not an obstacle. They're not in opposition to what I'm making. They're not, and very frankly, my kids have opinions about what I make. I show them my songs. Like there's a song that I'm not done with.
Yeah.
That they keep begging me to finish. It's not out yet, and it probably won't be out for a while.
Right.
But they're like mad at me because they love it so much. They're like, Dad, is this on Spotify yet? Like they're talking to me about this all the time.
Yeah.
All my kids so far are somehow like musically inclined. It hasn't like materialized into sort of like a discipline to like learn how to play an instrument.
Yes.
But they're constantly like singing their own songs and writing their own stuff. And then I've tried to take the time to like record with them, like help, like I don't do it nearly as much as I would like to or should, but I like it. Sometimes I'll be like, all right, let's work on your song. Like my daughter, like there have been days where like I'd like get on to her about something, and like I was right. I mean, I needed to do that as a dad. She's like, okay, Dad. And then she would like go in her room, close the door, and she'd be like, and I was feeling sad. Like she starts like singing hers, like her feelings out, man. So it's like, so like, in that way, there's this really cool, like a reciprocal, synergistic thing. I love helping them discover new music, and I love like talking to them about it. They have a playlist. Each of them have a playlist, and I'll like listen to something and like, Dad, will you put that on my playlist? And so I'll go and I'll feed it to them, and that way. And my dad was a little tough on me as far as like me wanting to learn something. And he eventually came around, so I want to give him a little credit. It wasn't all bad, but like I don't. If my kids are interested in something, then I want to feed that interest, and I want to like make it easy for them to have access. Yeah. But I also know like that the reason why I'm here today as a musician is because I was like fiercely curious and driven to like, materialize my ideas. When I was 15, I would like hang out. One part of my chores was I wash dishes.
Yeah.
So
I do the same, washing dishes.
Well, and I don't know about you, but I feel like doing menial tasks is actually like a huge part of my creative process. Because I'm doing something that lets my brain like imagine or go free. So I get a lot of great ideas doing that.
Especially when you're always in a spot where you try to think of a good idea and nothing comes out. It just so happens. The minute we walk away and do something else.
Yeah. Dude,
I didn't realize how powerful washing dishes are.
Imagine that.
Oh my gosh, that's a great idea.
And to me, it's like a spiritual practice. Like I make it a practice of presence. Like I'm being I'm here, I'm washing the dishes, I'm being present in this moment as I'm scrubbing or sliding it in the dishwasher. But I'm also being present with my mind and letting my mind have the freedom to like work on things. So 15, I'm like, I'm doing this chore that I was forced to do or whatever. But it actually, oddly enough, like generated ideas, and so I had a lot of friends who were starting to get in bands, and frequented like a coffee shop in the community I grew up in at that time. So I saw my friends like getting guitars and stuff, and I started getting a little jealous because it was like they're all getting in bands. Like I want to do that. Well, just so happened my dad was cleaning out the attic, and he had this old like beat up guitar that he was going to throw away, and I stole it.
Oh no!
I brought it back to my room, and it had this Mel Bay songbook, and it had like these charts for some guy named Bob Dylan, and these weirdos named Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
Shout out, because Bob Dylan and Simon and Garfunkel are amazing. But I didn't have a reference point for that. But I was like so determined that like I was like playing on a out of tune guitar, and I just kept going, and then eventually my dad and my stepmom, they bought me my first guitar, and so then all of a sudden I was able to like take that and hang out with my friends and learning chords from them, and the cool thing was like none of my friends or me, like none of us wanted to learn everybody else's songs. We wanted to write our own stuff. Right. So there was already like very, very early on like a writing culture. And so that's how so anyway, that being said, kudos to my dad. Sometimes he made it hard to get to the coffee shop, but I got there, and that space sort of helped me as a kid grow into what I am now. So as a dad, I want to feel that interest in my kids if they're interested, and then I mean, dude, like your whole life is fodder for what you're making.
Yeah.
So, the experiences that I share with them or the things about them that spark my imagination inevitably find the way into my songs somehow. Yes, sir. Kino.
All right. Going back to the early conversation we had, where you mentioned about how the influences that you gather from your mom and your dad and your uncle, how do you see that when it comes to your children with being influenced by other music? What are
Yeah.
your take? What's your take on that? Because music nowadays are no, the source material is just not nice to listen to. So as a father, and especially the
yeah.
fact that when they have interest in music,
Yeah.
how do you see? How do you want to go about that?
So, I think that as a parent, my job. Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah, I know what you're asking.
Okay.
Yeah, I get it. I think like older generations of parents, like when you're born, I think parents in the past, I think at first, the kid existed for the parent, and then the parent would like do their best to mold the kid into another version of themselves.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Tracking so far?
But I heard recently, I can't remember who to give credit to about this. I can't remember if it's a psychologist or teacher or whatever, but this person said, when your kids are born, they are who they are. You get what you get. Your job is not to shape them into yourself. Your job is to cultivate the space for them to become the best version of who they are, what they are. And so
Bars.
So what I would say is, like, when it comes to musical taste and stuff like that, I spend a lot of time like getting to know my kids and knowing what they can handle, right?
Okay.
And I don't judge other parents for like what they let their kids listen to or whether do or do not. But like I feel like there's certain things that my kids aren't ready for. Not because I have an aversion to it, as much as I know my kids. I know where they're kind of like at in their journey of growing up.
Right.
So that's kind of the thing, is like, I'm the one introducing them to music. I'm seeing like what their tastes are, and I'm paying attention to what they're into.
Yeah.
Like I can kind of tell you, what my daughter is into and what my son is into. The older ones, because they're the ones who have more opinions than the younger ones right now. So like, for example, my daughter all of a sudden loves country. So, but I've introduced her to specific artists, and I'd even say that like out of those artists, I've only introduced her to specific songs.
Right.
Because like I don't think she's ready for all of the songs, Then like she loves Paramore, and I love Paramore.
Oh my God, best band ever.
Freaking love Paramore.
Love that. Yep.
But like I don't know that she's ready for all the Paramore songs. So I kind of like field like which ones I think she's ready for.
Wait, why not let them find their own way? Like, yes, you can guide them, but there's also something about, like how my parents, with everything that they've done, they just said their motto is this: "Well, we'll guide you as best as we can,
right?
But how you make your decision and whatever you do, we'll let you learn from your own experience and how you interpret that." So, in that aspect,
it's kind of the same thing. I mean, my daughter's 11,
right?
And my next oldest is 8. He'll turn 9 in the summer. And so it's like to me it's like a slow release. Like
catharsis.
It's a slow release of like them slowly carrying more weight of the responsibility of their own experiences, right?
Okay.
So like that's why, like, in a couple years, my daughter will listen to all the Paramore records, however she wants to listen to them. She'll probably listen to more of Casey Musgraves stuff because she's really into Casey Musgraves. And I'm sure like our conversations will also change, about that stuff, because as a parent, I want to be involved in, what she thinks and what she's feeling and how she processes it. But there's certain conversations that my wife and I we've sensed that she's not ready for, and we're not ready for. And so, we have I think the responsibility as our parents to like guide that process. And so now again, I'm talking about my kid, so like, but if I'm in a situation with, and it's like another parent, like there's, parents that probably listen, let their kids listen to all kinds of explicit stuff. Well, that's not for me to judge. What are their lives like? What do they see every day?
Yeah.
Like I do and have taught kids that, come from rougher upbringing. So like their filters and their understanding is different than what my kids are experiencing on the daily. So that might mean, the music that they consume is going to be different for them, because they have more of a grid for things, right? So
and the music probably reflects on
So I'm not trying to overprotect my kid. I want like I don't want my kids to be like shell shocked or whatever. But I do want to like be really present with them in what their daily reality is and what the soundtrack of that reality is, and so slowly want to reveal those things, or slowly want to like give them the chance to like get their legs under them with what music talks about. Also my daughter loves Spice Girls, right?
Yeah.
She has no idea what Zigga Zigga is. But it's a cool word, so like.
No, that's the first time I've heard it too.
I'm just saying, so shout out to everybody who loves Spice Girls and know what that word means. But I'm like, it's not time for us to talk about that.
Okay.
She's getting closer to the age where we need to talk to her about that.
It seems to me that the reason why there's certain things that haven't been talked about is that they're not at a place at their current age where it sounds like there's a time and place where they can where that when they reach that, they'll have a much better understanding of that specific.
Yeah, I think the object is like them having the maturity to be able to handle the weight of what they're listening to.
You still don't have that in the beginning.
Yeah,
so I agree.
I love I love Kendrick Lamar's "To Pimp a Butterfly." I think he's a genius, and I think like that record it's genius, but like I'm old enough to sit and listen to it and understand, something about what he's talking about. I haven't lived his experience, and there's certain aspects of it that I can't empathize with, but I can listen to what he's communicating, and I can feel, I can absorb what he wants us to feel about his experience living his life.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But and for him, that record is all about like becoming famous, and also like, from what I understand, the title "To Pimp a Butterfly" is how are you going to sell something that's already free, right? Again, brilliant. And so like the racial ramifications of him being at the level he is, doing what he's doing, that's what I take from it. But that's something that I can digest at my age and my my place in life, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that come from Compton or where he's from that are going to be able to listen to that from lots of different age ranges that have his experience, right, where they're like ready for it. But I don't think that everybody's ready for that. My kids aren't ready to explore that yet, but they will be.
And I think when they reach that, they'll be able to understand the value of listening to it.
Yeah. I want my kids to be at some point ready to like listen and read all kinds of stuff, man, and like watch all kinds of things, and have like incredible conversations and like pick things apart. I'm not a prude. I'm not gonna like protect them to the point that they're not like they don't understand that there's a whole wild world out here, right? But I at least want to give them a good head start to slowly integrate, in some ways in my life, I feel like I was a little bit of a late bloomer. There's things that I had to like catch up on,
Yeah.
because there was like a gap in my life where like things were so delayed from like what I was able to consume, just because my parents were fielding things more, had stricter rules, which that's their choice. I get it. But it did, and in some ways that was great for me. Because there were some years where I learned things way too fast, and that might not. I wasn't ready for it. I don't think, and it just is what it is. So I don't know. I think I wanted to find like the balance in my life with my kids. So as far as being an artist, like it can be a tension between some things that I want to write about versus like do I need to filter for my kids' sake? Because once you make something as an artist, it's out there.
Yeah.
Your kids are going to find it one day, right? And so there's sort of like a sense of responsibility of like, do I need to make something unfiltered because I'm just need to do it, and maybe I don't necessarily share that with my kids yet? Or do I make things in an authentic way that brings in everybody, including my kids, where they can experience it and take it in? Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah,
And so I think like every artist approaches that differently. Every artist decides how they're going to make something, whether that's like completely unfiltered about their lives, or whether they keep their families or loved ones in mind and try to compassionately, graciously create things.
I think there's
to honor the relationship.
I think there's also another way, which is that you can still put that out there that seems to be more, not as much as you would like to share, but there's still a value in being able to tell them from behind the scenes, to share to them, because you have that one part that not everyone will get, which is that you share the story behind the song with your kids and your family. And once they fully grasp that, the whole view that they have on that song that you just put out becomes completely different.
Well, and I think like it's possible, and I just had this thought that like I personally don't have anything explicit out there.
Yeah.
But that's not to say I won't one day, but just like I curate or slowly share other people's songs with my kids and help them help define what their tastes are, right? I can also do that with myself. It's like as a parent, I'm slowly revealing more of myself to them. I'm slowly revealing more of my heartache to them. And as I'm teaching them that, hey, that you're not responsible for this, but this is my journey, and this is what you can learn from it, right? So I think like it works with the way I create, and it works with what I show them of what I'm making, So I don't know. That's just how it works for me and my family. Like other people probably have a different way of looking at it.
I just had a thought. I think what you're doing at one of these days, when we're not around, but your kids are gonna find your music, I think one thing you have as an advantage as a parent and as a musician, in my perspective, because I don't have parenting experience, but the songs that you put out, especially the ones that that's gonna help them one day, it's like another extension of being a parent, where
absolutely
if they, one day, I'm sure I would imagine there have been cases where they will have an argument with you and it's hard to express it, but when they calm down, and going back to what we said earlier, when we find the music and then when they hear their dad's voice, and then it's talk about what they're going through, and when they finally open up themselves to listen to that song, it becomes another instant connection. It's like they're connecting to you through your songs, especially when we're not around. Does that make sense?
Oh man, I love.
It's like a gift right there.
It really is. Yeah. No. I think that's maybe why part of I think there's like the on purpose part of why I write the way I write.
Yeah.
But then there's like the part of it that's like spiritual, maybe like it's prophetic, like in a sense of like what you're saying is like when I'm gone, my music will still be here.
Yes.
And the things I'm singing about my view of the world, the words that I'm trying to convey about like taking the hard things and like the paradox of finding light in the dark places, right? Like, of course I'd want that to speak to my kids because inevitably they're going to go through hard times, and I would want them to know that their dad went through hard times, and that I had to sing my way out of the trench, and maybe my words will be there for them in that way. You know,
It'll be like a marching hymn.
yeah, dude. Like, what an incredible legacy, right? Like that. Of course, I'm not just writing for me. Of course, I'm writing something that hopefully my kids will be proud of. They might eventually, like, if you like listen to like other musicians and artists talk about their kids and about like whether their kids like their music or whatever, and like I'm never gonna like twist my kids' arms to like what I do, to like what I make. I feel really lucky right now that they're into it, and I don't take that lightly. I'm like, man, I'm trying to soak this up as much as I can. I think part of like what I'm doing in terms of like my goals and my successes is I'm modeling something for them. That it is possible to have a dream and to find success with that dream. And they're watching me and my wife too, in her ways, like choose a life and work hard for it and gain the fruits of our labor for it, right? And before my kids, I dove into music because I was teaching. I was a high school English teacher, and it was like I was teaching my students one day, and at the time, these are kids that were in FEMA trailers still.
What?
FEMA trailers, because we all lived in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
So it was like Hurricane Katrina. So like the whole world around us was shattered to hell, and so here I am at the front of class, teaching ninth graders, and I'm just like, hey, listen, you want to make your world a better place? You got to do the things that make you come alive. You got to do the things that you're passionate about. And as I'm saying that, it's like I'm like prophesying to myself. I'm like speaking to me, and for me that internal dialogue, it goes to God or whatever, and I'm just like hearing, you're right. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I'm here teaching. This is my calling, right? And it's like, man, you go to bed thinking about music. You wake up thinking about music. Go show them how to do it. It's your turn. And dude, that was kind of like the green light for me. It was like, I love these kids and I want to show them what that looks like. And I need to do it for me too, And so from that point on, I was in and out of the classroom while pursuing music. And then, I was able to get some things done, and some things happened for me, and it's humbling and beautiful. And so it started with my students. I wanted to show them like, hey, you can do this. Like, do whatever you can imagine. You put in the sweat. You lean into your talents and your gifts, and you lean into those things that make you come alive, that you're passionate about. So of course I want to show my kids, my own kids, how to do that. And
yeah,
and I want them, whatever it is, like it doesn't have to be music. It's like whatever they love to do. I want to be their biggest cheerleader along with my wife. We want to be the ones who are like, go get it. Like, go get it, man. Like, you're awesome. And so like, high value in our family on cheering each other on and supporting each other. And so that's reciprocal, right? That they do the same with with us, and I'm an adult, you know. So like, you know, my dream one day is to be on a big stage and look over and
You see them.
see them, and it's like,
You on.
you know, wink, you know, whatever. Like, hey, it's almost like, as cool as it is for me to get to do it, as much as I want to do it, it's also like me saying, you can do this, you got it, whatever it is, you know. I need to succeed so they succeed, you know. So that's kind of part of, I think, for me, being a dad, being an artist, is that it's not, I don't think, for me, it doesn't feel like undue pressure, or it doesn't feel like a heavy responsibility, like, oh, I gotta make it happen so that, you know, I take care of everybody. You know, it's not, no, it's like, it's exciting things like, man, I want to do this because like, I want to show them that they can. And do I want them to be proud of me? Yeah, man, of course. I want them to, you know, but like, the other thing is, I don't want to be an amazing artist and a shitty dad. You know, like, I want to be a very present dad. I want to be like a really loving, aware, like into my kids kind of dad. And I think that, you know, I'm doing the best I can, you know, to be that for them. I'm imperfect at it, but I think like me investing in their interests, and us talking about things, you know, me asking them questions about my songs. Like, I ask them what they think.
Yeah.
Like, so that, and they're savage, man. They will tell me, you know. But like, you know, we'll bounce from that, and then like we'll go to Voltron. You know, like right now we are binging Voltron on Netflix.
Okay.
So that's like a thing that we do.
I gotta say, it's
Yeah.
the thing that you're doing that's really inspiring, and I'm sure it will be very inspiring to other people to hear, is that what I think the songs that you create for them, you know, okay, blending it, you're a teacher, you want to educate, now you have a song that you want to create that will almost give you the exact same feeling when you listen to Yellow by Coldplay for the first time. And then now you have kids, and now you have this desire for the legacy that you want to leave behind. Sure, for everyone else, but especially for your kids.
Yeah.
I think I think you're gonna find your own Yellow song, and then when they listen to it, they'll feel like they can carry that along with them, no matter what stage they are in.
Yeah.
Because you know what they're listening to? They're listening to their dad's voice, guiding them along the hard times. And one more thing, the lessons that you leave behind and how you make the songs for them to listen to. I don't know, because I'm not a parent, nor will I ever become one. Not sure, debatable. But but I would like to think it's the same. Okay, it's the same way that my grandmother left me a planner when she knows that I'm not as well versed in religion, but she did leave me a letter, or not letter. It's a book of all the prayers that are related to, you know, you have pride, you have difficulties letting go, death, loss, and so on. And I think it will be the same way for you with the albums. When they find your songs, when they listen to it, I think no matter where you are, they'll know that they have a cheerleader right in their ears, just telling them what to do.
Man, that's a really beautiful thought, and I hope so. Like, and I hope that, as a parent, that I've loved them well, so that when they hear my songs, that they remember me loving them well in everyday life, so that those songs carry more weight. I would hate it if like and man, I'm gonna make mistakes. Like, as parents, we do. We're, you know, I don't want to think about the day when my kids have to come to me and be like, Dad, you know that one time that you did XYZ, it really hurt. I mean, you almost kind of like have to be prepared for that, you know? And I hope that when that day comes, that I'll be able to say I'm sorry, and we can grow toward each other in that moment, you know? But I hope that my songs carry more weight for them because of the way I love them in the day to day. So again, imperfect with that, but I'm working on that. But yes, man, what a beautiful thought to like be the soundtrack for their lives.
Oh my God, that's a great summarization of ever doing. Just
Yeah.
guys, parents, mothers, fathers, be the soundtrack of your kids' lives.
Yeah.
Because you never, you was the. I'm just grateful for my parents because, like you said, they are the soundtrack of my life, and I don't want it to end. I don't want that soundtrack to end.
Man.
And when you
Dude.
listen to Dean Lewis, that song, How Do
Yeah.
I Say Goodbye?
Yeah.
I felt like when my grandma, because she was a really huge part of my life,
Yeah.
and taking care of my hearing loss, knowing that soundtrack is quiet, it's unsettling. It's not the kind of silence that I'm okay with. And once they're gone, it's like you really want to hear that back. You really want to hear
Yeah.
that play again.
You know,
It's
yeah.
just,
Well, first of all, man, I'm so sorry. Like that's losing a grandparent. I empathize with what you're saying because I've my grandpa, the one that I was closest to, he actually died on my birthday. And
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. And that was in 2020. So I was during quarantine. It was really heavy moment. But I think that for me, because this is just my perspective on
Yeah.
life is because I believe in a spiritual reality, a spiritual dynamic, because I really care about like being connected to that and stuff. I'm grateful that somehow it puts me in touch with my grandparents are still touching my life. Like I'm seeing aspects of me that come from him, and when I notice those things, it's like he's with me, you know. And my hope for you would be that somehow you would see that she's very much with you, you know, and just in ways that might be unexpected, and maybe potentially ways that like maybe it's time to become aware, you know, awakened to it. I also I'm not a superstitious person, but like people talk about how like when cardinals show up,
What?
cardinals like the bird, the cardinal, cardinal,
Oh, card.
like
Okay.
a red red bird,
Yeah, red
cardinal,
cardinal. Yeah.
that they symbolize past loved ones coming to visit you. So what's really cool is my office space is like right on my backyard, and I have this really massive like sliding door. It's like a big window to the backyard, and I'll sit and drink my coffee and meditate or whatever, just prepare for the day. And I have cardinals that visit often, and so when I see them, it's like, oh, it's my grandpa, my grandma Sally, who's also a significant relationship to me. She's my dad's mom, and she very, very important part of my life, and very encouraging part of my life. And then I had a friend that passed on also 2020. It was really tough. So I think of them, when I see those red birds pop in. I'm like, oh.
Okay, I have a request. Can you make a song with the title Red Cardinals? When you said that, I now want to get a tattoo of it because long story, I only get tattoos when meaning and just, I did not know about that.
Yeah,
Really?
Look it up, man. Look it up. Yeah.
Man,
I love the idea of cardinals, and it's funny that you brought that up. I can't say that I'm currently working on a song that's called that, but I've definitely been like trying to squeeze that idea in, like the cardinal, and somehow. So that's something I've actually been thinking a lot about, just because I just think it's really cool. I think nature. Some people say that nature is the first gospel, and what they mean is that that nature is the first good news, the first thing that we can visibly see, like the way that things grow or change, cycles, right? Like it communicates the nature of life or love or hope or whatever, so I think in recent years I've been trying to pay more attention to that and be more present with nature. And so for whatever reason, I have a lot of critters that are drawn to my yard, man. So when they come, I'm just try to be present and just be like, what's being communicated to me today? What is it that how do I need to be encouraged, or how do I need to take care of this? How do I need to be present in this moment? When the birds or the foxes or I had a turkey come in my yard one time. I'm dead serious, bro. Like this turkey just showed up
for Thanksgiving.
Like, no, but it was pecking on that window. It was just like, it was wild. Yeah. So yeah, I've had, I don't know. Sometimes butterflies. Like I think that a butterfly is a significant, message carrier, right? That
Especially in the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
We have the grief that we experience, and that will create a butterfly effect.
Yeah, grief comes in waves. Like, dude, I would assume this is probably true for you. Tell me if I'm wrong, but there are days where I'm just driving out and about, and all of a sudden I'll think of my grandma Sally and something she said to me, and I'll be crying all over again. And she's been gone now it'll be 10 years this year. I think
Never goes away.
It never goes away. Yeah. So I've got a picture of my grandpa, in my house, and I'll look at it and be like, what's going on, Johnny? Miss you, man. Sometimes you just got to release that feeling or that thought that, Andrew Garfield was on Stephen Colbert, and he said...
Did you say Andrew Garfield, that's Spider-Man?
Yeah, he was on
Stephen
Colbert, and Stephen Colbert was talking to him about, like, Andrew Garfield recently lost his mom. And he said something like, I hope I'm quoting this right, grief is love leaving the body, unexpressed love,
I'll add on to that. There's a book I read about grief. It's the hardest form of love is grief, because it's not only when you lose something, you really fully embrace the love that you have shared with that person. And when it's hard to let go, that's the purest love, because it has been so ingrained part of your life, and knowing that it's not around anymore, that's the hardest love to carry.
Oh man. Yeah.
You just don't want to, it's like you want to unburden yourself.
Yeah.
You don't want to deal with it anymore. But at the same time, it's always a good thing to have to remind you that life can be so fragile, and how they left us behind and how we learn from them. It's also another it's another form of love that we can do in their legacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever your grandma Sally did for you, you can express that to other people.
Yeah, man. And I do. And
Yeah.
that's I think that's like the lovely part of her life and my relationship, my dynamic with her.
Yeah.
Is that she gave me so much to pass on, and I guess that's why I was talking to you earlier about, like, yes, physically she's gone, but she is ever with me. Like I feel her, in my everyday life on some level, and we cross paths, frequently enough, where I'm reminded of her, or I think of what she would do or what she would say, or what, how she felt, like that's another thing, is just like, there was a warmth to my grandma, and sometimes I'm reminded of that warmth, what it felt like to be around her. Yeah.
Don't get emotional.
Grandparents, man, like if you have a good relationship with your grandparents, that's a tough one. It's really tough. It's a tough loss.
I just didn't like how I left mine. Yeah. I had the last conversation. It was about, she was talking about God. And for some reason, I just decided to challenge it. And that was the last conversation I had with my grandma. And then when, things got with her health becoming worse, and, my mom flew out to Philippines and, to be there. And then there was a day I got a text in the morning and my brother was like, she passed away. And knowing that's how I left it, bro, that shit kills me.
Oh man.
And
Well, it sounds like first of all, maybe just because it sounds like your grandma was good that she let you communicate what you wanted to say, but maybe it felt like you were being aggressive toward her. Is that kind of what you're saying?
no, I
don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I'm just more of like I've always tried to understand because almost everybody's like so ingrained in religion, and I just so happen to be the one that wants to challenge it more.
Yeah, I got you.
But you know what I wish? I wish I said. I wish I could have said, you know what, Grandma? You and I may have our differences, but that's okay. But I hope one day that you will be the one to prove me wrong. Wow. I hope you were the one that was right. But I didn't. And I don't know how to carry that. And it's really, really difficult.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
I'm going to try. I may not be able to fix that. But what I can try to do is embody the values that she imbued in me. Yeah. To try, because dude, that mistake feels like the biggest one. Like when our grandparents they have made a lot of sacrifices for our upbringing. But then all of that seems to be hard. It's so hard to see when one tiny mistake. I could have flown over there, but I was too scared. Yeah. I was thinking about me. I was not thinking about her.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
That's heavy. I don't know if this is encouraging, but I had a conversation with my mom once where like I was expressing that like I felt sad because I lived at a distance from my grandparents and I was worried that I hadn't gone back enough, to see them, especially toward the end, with my grandpa in particular. I'm really lucky that my last conversation with him was a good one, and I'm just grateful that my aunt was at his nursing home and was able to like get him on the phone with me, because very shortly after that everything shut down because that was in 2020, right? But my mom said something to me. She said, "Oh, Quinn," she said, "you know that all your grandparents wanted for you was for you to live. Like, to like do everything you want to do." And she's like, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself about, how much you saw them toward the end. Like, because they were seeing you like live your life and like grow and go and do the things that you wanted to do. And that was comforting to me at the time. It was like, what I can do for them is live, is like live to the fullest, whatever that means for me specifically. Like get the most out of this experience of being human. And so, in a way, I honor them with that.
God damn it.
Oh, man.
I can't wait for my first red cardinal.
I hope you see one soon. And when you do, I hope you stop and just maybe have a convo with your grandma. Maybe you say what you just told me, because it was really beautiful.
God damn it. This is supposed to be...
Oh, man.
Okay, we're gonna... I really love the answers you get, because it just... I don't even need to ask a lot of this. It just made it easy to go through. Fuck.
Kino, you're a good dude, man. You're a good dude.
Just one more question before we go to the other ones.
Yeah.
How do you forgive yourself for that mistake?
Oh.
because to other, everyone's like, oh no, it's okay. It just
Yeah.
they minimize it, but you're not the one that
That did it. Yeah. You know, man, I think there's certain things that certain decisions that we make that we just have to carry a certain way that feel heavier than others. But I believe that very rarely does one decision define my life forever, right? Like, I believe my life is defined by both sides of the dash. You know, like the tombstone dash. Like, what I hope my life in its fullness communicates is love and hope and peace and all the good stuff. And so if I get in a spot where like I make a decision, like that, doing the work is like processing the grief of that decision, right? And allowing for the proper amount of time to process the grief of that decision. But if you know that you messed up, then it's your responsibility to live differently, from that point. And then as the grief comes up in you, through like taking inventory within yourself, maybe seeing a counselor, huge advocate for that.
I'm just muting.
Yeah. Whatever you need to do to process how the impact of it, how it made you feel, right? Like, do it. And then, but just remember that your life is not defined by that decision, I think, unless you allow it to define you.
It just feels like it is because I'm still.
You're
learning.
still learning. You're still processing it. But you know what, man?
I'd like to be at a place where I already learned it.
Right. Isn't that what we all wish? But like maybe it's a ground zero. It's a new ground zero. It's a new square one, and you gotta riff off of that, I think.
I'll make another version of a soundtrack soundtrack of my life that this time she would want me to have.
Man, I have to believe that like, it's I guess it's that spiritual side of me that says, and this isn't disregarding that you have a spiritual side, so I don't mean it like that. But I just think our grandparents know. I just think like the older people, the wiser people in our lives know, like, maybe you were going through it, Kino, and she knew it. It's not like you were challenging her to. I don't know your motivations, so I don't want to.
I don't even know anymore because
maybe not. But maybe you're just being young and dumb. Like and you said something shitty and like, but like, she's not holding it against you because of that. I think like the older, wiser people in our lives, hopefully, I believe they know that those kinds of things don't define us. That's why our grandparents love us so fiercely. If you have good ones, right? They believe in us, man. Like, they don't allow these ruts that we get ourselves into define who they believe us to be. That's why they're there the way they are, And so, man, I choose to believe that your grandma knows. She knew, and she's just, that was just a day. Just a bad day for Kino. And you know what, man? She shared those values with you, to the end, right? Because she believed in your better nature, believed in the best of who you could be. So even when you were poking holes in it, maybe that says something. I don't know. I don't want to project or try to like define it for you, or I don't even want to like give you platitudes about it, right? No. I think I try to listen more, grieve more with people, like be sad, feel that sadness more than like give them an antidote. You know what I'm saying?
The book did mention about how platitudes will never connect because it's only at that moment of grief that our world is ripped apart and nothing makes sense anymore. But the
Right.
only way we process through that is to literally go through with it. And once as every step that we take towards finding our way back to the world that it is at that present moment, we start to understand why people are there. They'll help you. The platitudes become more meaningful, but it's just when it happens, none of that shit matters.
Yeah, I have a counselor.
Yeah.
And I also have a spiritual director.
Yeah.
And a lot of my conversations with my spiritual director specifically, it's more about like just being like living through the dark night of the soul, or whatever you want to call it. Like you just have to live it until you're out of it, you know. And I think that what's helpful is like in our conversations, she's feeling it with me. She's allowing me to express it, and she's just like making space for the emotion of it to be there and to like hold it. You know, like we talk about like holding the space with people. And I think like that's the powerful thing about relationships and walking with people through hard stuff, you know. I hope and you know, to kind of circle back to it, like with my music, I think like I hope it's a form of holding the space with people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because we don't like circle back to the other conversation.
Yeah.
We will not show ourselves until we're alone with the music, and whatever music we listen to. That's the smallest moment that no one in the entire world will ever see, because
Yeah.
we hold that's only for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God damn it. Okay. All right, guys. As you heard, I hope for the people out there, grief is not something that should be. I also hate one more comment about this. I hate how current society sees it as it's a thing that no one wants to talk about.
Like a weakness.
It's a thing that they make it out to be so uncomfortable, when really we just don't know how to understand and how to empathize, because once something is uncomfortable, the first thing we want to do is run away. And that's why we get hit with the platitudes in hopes that it'll take it away. But you can't.
Yeah, man. And I mean,
And music is the one place where you don't hear any of that.
that's true. That's a good point, where the emotions are expressed perpetually, right? Yeah. As far as our society, I think, like you said, we want to slap a Band-Aid on it. We want it to end sooner, and like grief doesn't work like that.
Exactly.
It doesn't work like
Jesus. If people can understand that, the world will be a little bit easier to bear through.
We are learning. Hopefully, we're learning how to carry each other's burdens. You know, and it takes patience, man. It takes a deep patience to like allow people in your life to process through their grief.
Yeah.
You know, to process through their losses, and I think like maybe some people haven't experienced those significant losses, so they don't have the grid for how it feels, or like empathy. I think, you know, empathy is a really important thing, and empathy comes from experience, like lived experience. And so, you know, for people that have had like deep losses, you know, we learn to lean into each other, because like there's like a language, there's like a shorthand that we know, that we can feel it with each other, right? And it's
almost like an unspoken law rules.
Yeah, and you, I think when stuff happens to you that's like really big and devastating, traumatic or whatever, you know, I think for some of us, we learn how to channel that into being more present and available and helpful to others, you know, and not to like if you know, some of us can't access that. Like, I don't think that that's shameful or wrong. I think it all just depends on what we've experienced, right?
Yeah.
And how we deal with it, right? Some of us, for some reason, learn how to take the traumatic things and use it to like bring healing to other people who have experienced other things. Like there's like a thing called a wounded healer, you know, that your woundedness paradoxically turns into what you use
It's the medicine.
to medicine, yeah. And so
The world is already full of hurt. Why should we keep adding to it?
mm-hmm.
And I think music's a great place to start with that.
Yeah, man. Dude, I'm an advocate for that.
All right, that's enough for the section of grief. We're gonna be diving into the last section, which is about business.
Business.
So, thank you again for opening your heart. Man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So business, music licensing. I remember we had a conversation
Yes.
and music licensing, and I gotta say, when I looked on your website, I was really impressed with the accolades that you have. Let me read it out loud for the people that want to know your stats.
Oh man.
So,
okay.
you made a mark with the music licensing with your work appearing on platforms like MTV, Netflix, and even at the Super Bowl. What?
That did
So
happen,
with that, it's like music licensing. Can you walk us through the challenges, the strategies, and some of the tips that most people would love to know when it comes to putting music out there? Because some people think music is you only make music based off of the shows, but it's like music licensing is not often the avenue that most artists would consider when it comes to making money.
That's a good. Okay, so, so with licensing, my story kind of starts at an interesting pivotal moment, in music, but also in film. Okay, because that's essentially what licensing is like you're pairing a song with a visual.
Right.
And so when I came into this aspect of making music, there was like a huge shift in cameras and film. So like we went from like wedding video, like with like a VHS,
Yes,
camcorder, right? To like these epic like Canon, like this better than me.
Yeah.
And so like all of a sudden there was this elevated style of making wedding film.
Yeah.
Okay. And so at the same time, licensing in TV shows and film became a new way to like break artists. So like way back in the day, there's this band called The Fray, and they're still around, but their big break came from Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so their song appeared in an episode of Grey's Anatomy, and everybody lost their minds. Who is this band? And so this is when like Napster and the whole streaming thing is like. So the music industry is floundering, trying to figure out how to like make money. And so, pairing a band with a TV show and a visual all of a sudden became a new way to like feed the public new artists.
Yeah.
But in that instance, like you've got music supervisors who are directly connected to large productions. Well, if you're a baby band, how are you going to get connected to those companies and get yourself those opportunities? Simultaneously, you've got these wedding filmmakers making these like elevated cinema style, wedding films, and they want great music to pair with those visuals, but the music they would use are like major label artists that they can't afford licenses for. So so this company in Texas called MusicBed, still doing great things now. They, the two guys that started that company, they were wedding filmmakers, or at least connected to that culture. Yeah. And they were like, what if we created something where, like, maybe there's like bands or music that's already quality, but they're independent artists. Like, what if we like paired up, made a platform for their music and for these filmmakers to interface. And so, I'm in Nashville at the time, newly in Nashville, and I'm kind of figuring out the game. And so I wasn't like going at it from the vantage point of like, I'm going to write music that's licensable,
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, here's this. I know that licensing is an avenue to introduce your music to people. And my first, my oldest band, Afterlife Parade, we just finished making the record, and it just so happened that the music I was making was cinematic. It wasn't like I'm writing it from this place.
Yeah.
You know, so anyway, I was in a batch of artists with Music Bed in 2011, and like my first license at the time was like $24.
Okay.
3 years later, I was making like a third, fourth year teacher salary. That's how I would have equated it.
Wow.
And because that market just grew.
Yeah.
And so now you have micro licensing, what they call micro licensing, which is like, you know, low budget film, wedding film, nonprofit media, regional stuff. And then you've got the bigger stuff. And so now at the time there was like a lot of conversation about like, how are the macro licensing and the micro licensing gonna like work together? Because there was a huge debate over like, is micro licensing like affecting the value of the macro stuff? Because why would I pay $30,000 for a song if I could pay $1,000 for it?
It might just eat up the profits. Like it'll eat into it. So
It could, but I think like what eventually happened is like, well, what if the price point is based on the kind of spot, you know?
Okay.
And stuff like that. So anyway, I'm just right place, right time, you know, working.
That's in 2011 you mentioned?
It started then. That's when.
Oh, so 2011.
Yeah. So I'm like growing with Music Bed as it's growing.
Okay.
And this new market is growing. And so, which leads to other relationships like in other companies.
Yeah.
And then eventually I got the reach out from the label, the publishing house that hosts my music now, Hive Music. And I was at a point where I'd kind of hit a ceiling with the way I was doing things before. And so I needed to change things, right? To do a little change up. So, and things have evolved with licensing since then, right? So there's more of equanimity and understanding in both micro and macro, I think, at least from my experience. But so then from that point, I was having to like reverse engineer, how do my songs work? Why do people like them in their visuals? Right. And then like I'm like learning from the publishing houses that I'm connected to, and they're giving me the information about like what makes songs work in film and what music supervisors are actually looking for when they look at a song for that medium. And so it was a like reverse engineering, learning it, also like growing and learning from my A&R guy and producers I'm working with. And what I would say about licensing is I think that it's a very particular skill because and what's really cool is in you know, for the projects that I'm writing for, to me they're not like licensing projects. They're like, you know, like Bloom and the Bliss is like my alter ego, my persona, you know. And Afterlife Parade, my oldest band, got picked up by Hive as well. And Afterlife Parade isn't really a touring entity right now, but we're just recording music for now. And so all of a sudden, the way that it's viewed, the way that I see it is like TV is the new radio. It's like I'm writing for a format, and I'm writing authentically for that format with these particular ways of writing. And, you know, and I hope that people enjoy the music when they see it in a TV show or a commercial. And
it's the same thing with TikTok too. I don't mean, like with the format film, everybody's just, y'all want me to shoot vertical videos from now on.
So, but I think like, you know, like I think it's you know, we have to evolve with the times, and then as far as like seeing licensing is not only an avenue to make money, but seeing licensing as a way to create a particular kind of art, to learn a very, very specific skill. You know, like what I find valuable about writing for a format is that it forces me to, you know, take phrases or, you know, like I love you, and write it a different way, write it a new way. It forces me to like make sure that my melodies are even better. I would say that like I feel like I take less risks, but maybe a better way to say is I take different risks, not less risks.
Yes.
I take different risks,
Calculated
risks, and in it writing for like like for the TV, the visual format, it teaches the economy of words, and it teaches the economy of like structure, like from a musical standpoint. So, yeah, I think like I'm grateful for the skills and the tools that growing in licensing has given me, and so like maybe like Picasso, maybe I can hope that that I'm learning the rules, and then in other
And then you
things
break the
I'm breaking the
rules.
rules. Yeah,
Okay.
but then likewise, there's kind of like a circle back. It's like, well, what if in the licensing world, what if I can break some rules too?
Yeah.
Because it's part of the rub with that is like you're not only hoping that like people who are watching those shows will like the songs, but you're giving the music supervisors something that you hope that they'll like.
Yeah.
That will tickle their ears, in a way that they'll become fans of what we're putting in front of them. So in that sense, like that's kind of how those projects sort of function.
What are some of the strategies that you employ to ensure that a song, whatever you create onto whatever distributing platform, what are some of the strategies that you employ to make sure that it's successful as it can be, especially getting picked up by a show like Grey's Anatomy and all that?
Well, luckily, I'm not that third party involved in that. But the way that the label works, as far as I understand it, and the publishing houses, it's kind of like it's like a library. It's like the music supervisor comes to the library and says, "Hey, do you have a song that says this and feels like this? Like it's in this kind of style. Do you have that?"
Yeah.
And the publishing house, the library they're really good curators. So they're like, "Oh, we got 3 of those. Check this out." And then the supervisor takes those songs, and then they start pairing them with images, and they're also like looking at waveforms and how those waveforms are cut.
Wait, really?
Oh yeah.
Wait, they take into account of the waveforms? As in the why?
Yeah. The big thing is like well, this, man. Like when you listen to a song, you're looking for the best place to chop it.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And
okay.
you want to make sure that that in your visuals that like the music stops at a certain point, or if like there's a piece of that music that feels a certain way to you, and it accentuates what's happening in the visual. Well, you want to be able to. You don't want to have to sit there and try to manipulate that song forever to get it.
It just does it for you already.
It just does it for you.
You just have to match it up.
Yeah,
I got you.
But I think like the trick with that is like, as a artist making that music, is you don't want to do something that feels so chopped up that it's like it's fake.
Cookie cutter too.
It's cookie cutter, or like it doesn't feel authentic. So I think the difference between ad music and like what I do is that, and I'm grateful to the label in our relationship, is that I'm making things that feel authentic to who I am, and I'm taking the structures and the formats of the way of making it and infusing, going back to our conversation, infusing my history in what I'm making. So like, when you hear Bloom in the Bliss, or you hear Afterlife Parade or Saint Social, whatever it is, like to me as an artist, you're hearing a piece of me. You're hearing me making something that feels authentic to who I am. And it just so happens that like I am interested in different genres of music. And so each of my projects are distinct in that way, that they represent a different facet of like what I enjoy making. And so like if you check out Bloom in the Bliss, then you're going to hear this like pop, very personality, this Bloom character, and And then if you listen to Afterlife Parade, you're going to hear that more like indie folk version of me that's got these big harmonies and, the acoustic and, all that stuff. And then, and then my more indie rock side is going to be, Saint Social, the surfy tones and things. And the way that I purposefully write differently for all three of those projects, and I'm not just musically but even lyrically, like the content, the lyrical content, the words.
Oh, your creative style is influenced.
It changes. Yeah.
Okay.
My style changes with each of those projects. I'm trying on different hats. Now, none of that is like disingenuous to me, because I like all of those styles and I'm interested in all those styles, and I'm hoping that my flavor of those styles is still uniquely me, it's my take on those things.
And that's definitely going to be more valuable in comparison to the ad music, where it's just like jingle, simple tune. It's
when it feels like when it feels like it's advertising a product versus like I'm writing something that feels authentic but it belongs in this space, and it adds levity or dials up the emotion of a moment happening between two characters, or sometimes storytelling. Yeah.
Emotions.
Yeah,
ad music doesn't have that.
Like I would say that when it comes to writing music for that format, that even the music itself structurally, like in different sections of the song, like a verse to a chorus or a chorus to a bridge or whatever, there are scene changes. You're writing scene changes throughout the song. I care a lot about the track listing. So when I write, I want the journey of the record, not just the songs, but the journey of the record to feel like
the album record.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So from first
like
song
the whole thing to feel like something you want to. And this is just my way of writing. Not everybody does this, but I want someone to listen to anything I do in one sitting. I want you to feel like, the exposition of the movie happens in song one, and then you go on this journey, and oh no, there's an abyss moment. There's like this struggle, and then you feel like you get out of that struggle, and then the big ending. And I'm not saying that all of my records are going to have that plot line,
the 3-act structure, so to speak.
Right. But but I will say that I try to write records that people want to listen to all the way through. And I assume that every artist does that. But I pay attention to I just feel very like impassioned by how the songs feel. Like, do they lead somewhere? Like, even within the track listing, not just in the songs. Like, I care about that in the songs, but I also care about that in track listing. So I'm a very macro thinker with that.
You can even apply this to, especially if you wanted to, for the album that's centered around grief. You have some songs that start off with the experience of feeling lost, but then you go through these other songs that it's like the phases of how you're going through.
Yeah. And I'll say this to you, man. I'm a very concept-driven artist. And what I mean by that is like, I talked about Genesis, and Genesis was known for writing concept records. Right? And concept records can be anything from like literally telling a story, like through a whole record, where there's like a character that has like this journey through, and every song is about that, right? Or just like like the first Afterlife Parade record, my oldest band, it was called Death and Rebirth. And the record was divided in half at first, so there were 2 EPs that then became the whole record. Yeah. And the first half was Death, and the second half was Rebirth. And so when I was writing that project, I was like on the Death side of the record. It had a very particular sound and feeling, and I was not just talking about like physical death, but I was like exploring death conceptually. Like one of the songs was about a breakup, and another song was about moving, and another song was about like experiences that have
heavy emotions associated with it. And I'm assuming
with death.
Rebirth is the
And then Rebirth
opposite.
was the opposite of that.
Yeah.
You know, like one song's about getting married. You know, one song's about the club as being a place of of a rebirth, right? Where like you shake off everything and you become something new. You know, so that's what I mean, like conceptual in that like I use concepts to give me containers because I'm so curious and riffy and brainstormy that I need something to kind of keep me focused.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my output is connected to concepts because of that. Yeah. So what I would say is like in you're talking about strategy or whatever, like I use the concept thing to guide me when I'm writing music for that format. You know, and it keeps the brand focused. It keeps the tone of the. And when I'm talking about tone, I'm talking about like the writing voice.
Yeah.
Of the songs and the
story behind it.
Story behind it on point. Yeah.
Yes.
And then it informs like word choice and diction and all that, like in the lyrics. And so that's part of, I think, a part of the rub with writing for a format is like, in the early days, I would try to get away with like some melancholy, and they come back, yeah, you can't put that lyric in there, like it's not happy enough.
Yeah,
it's got like the whole song has to be happy. Can't be any sadness in it. Take out that minor chord. It doesn't work.
So it's just a balance, and it's like a cog. Every song in the record is a cog in a machine.
It's a puzzle.
Yeah.
You're given a brief, and sometimes where like, hey, we need a song that has this kind of phrase in it. It's got the vibe of it needs to be this. In the early days, it was like, hey, can you write a project that feels like this band, and this band? And you're just like, okay.
Doesn't it feel restrictive though?
Well, what's helpful? That sounded funny. Well, I think it depends on who you are.
Okay.
Now, the thing about the way that it would work for me is that, like, it's a partnership. So, like, I have a say in it. It's not like I'm just beholden to whatever they want from me. So. If I felt like it wasn't playing to my strengths, then I would say something.
Right.
But luckily, because I have a really great partnership with the label, like we together can find like something that feels gratifying in what I'm making, and I don't feel like I'm being disingenuous, where it feels like I'm trying to make something I just can't make. So for me, like all my projects represent a facet of who I am as a human, and so I'm lucky that the partnership is like created that kind of synergy.
And especially the fact that you are a versatile artist with your other bands and you dip in your toes into different genres, that gives you a lot of skill sets that almost make you seem like a type of artist that can cater to whatever it is that they want and still maintaining your own voice.
Yeah, man. I think that for me, I like a very eclectic taste in music, and I'm a very curious person. And I'll add that, like, another thing that I've done in the past is I've been in artist development. Like, I spent some time helping other artists define their voices, and that was everything from like writing with other artists or producing other artists, and other artists meaning artists that are musically very different from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that writing in and of itself is just a skill. So some writers are just the best at this one genre, right? And maybe they dip their toes in another genre, kind of like we talked about.
Yeah.
Or like I like to talk to filmmakers or photographers because it reinforms what I'm making. Well, I think with writing, it's the same thing. It's like, well, what if I tried this other genre? It might reinform the one that I'm the best at, So I think that because my tastes are eclectic, because I like to try new things, that for me that's been beneficial in what I'm creating and making and trying out. And I think I'm doing the things that suit my voice the best, that suit my writing the best. But behind the scenes, man, like I love like working with artists that aren't like me and writing with them and stuff like that. I'm always about that. It helps me. It helps me as much as it helps them. And in fact, I think that like in the future that I'll be doing that more. I would like, or at least I'd like to. I'd like to, because part of my mission, part of my artistic mission is to be of benefit to the artistic community that I'm part of locally and the artistic community I'm part of globally. Like another interesting thing about the way that I work is that I am being fed tracks sometimes from producers that I've never been in the room with. Like I for Bloom and the Bliss, like most of the producers I'm working with are across the pond in the UK. I've never met them face to face. My the A&R my A&R guy, he lives in Portugal.
Oh wow!
Never, like, we've been on the phone for 8 years, but I've never been in the same space as him.
But you have that build up relationship with the trust between you two.
Right.
That's crazy.
That needs to change. That needs to change. And if he ever watches this or hears this, it's time for us to like hug each other's necks for real. Shout out to Robin. Yeah. But
damn,
it's really kind of fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a really interesting way to work, and if you create a life out of that. And I'll say, like, with licensing, it ebbs and flows like everything. Like, you have moments where you get those really big hits. I was really lucky that I, like, one of the big things that happened for me was a BMW commercial, and it just so happened that, like, the Bloom and the Bliss song that went with that commercial, like,
it just matched perfectly.
It matched perfectly. It was the Light It Up campaign, and the Bloom song is called Light It Up, and it had that vibe, and it, that's to me is like where it's kind of divine. It's like these songs, it's like these two things were like made for each other, and so kudos to the music supervisors who have to find that perfect,
one song out of millions.
Thing. And I mean like it's a they field a handful of things, and then that list becomes smaller, and then it might be between those two songs, and it could be yours and it could be the other guys.
Yeah.
And the music supervisors, they have a tough job to figure out, like, tonally, vibe wise, like what song is gonna hit the best, what's gonna feel the best with the visual, and so you're just as an artist, as a writer, just doing your best to be the best at what you make, the way you make it, and the rest is kind of left up to the amazing
supervisors,
the amazing team that represents you, and the supervisors who take care of that business, and then that's the beautiful thing is when it all works out, and it's very humbling. It's humbling, I've had moments where, and I don't find out about everything. Sometimes my songs will be placed somewhere that's a little bit more low key, and I won't know about it. And then sometimes, like, it's like the larger spots, and they'll be like, hey, it's between you and this other person. And it's like, fingers crossed. But, like, there've been moments where I'm, like, watching Netflix, and I'm watching the show, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second.
Isn't that my song?
Is that my voice?
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. Like it's like, I can't believe I get to do this. Like, this is wild. People are hearing this all over the place. That's crazy. I hope they really like it. I hope they go check it out. Yeah.
So I can, to those that may need to hear all this stuff.
Yeah, dude. I have to imagine. Well, it's super life-giving just from being an artist and getting to talk, and I love the format of podcasts because it's a conversation.
Yeah.
And it allows people to see another side of me. and I'm sure that other artists feel that way too.
How does it feel
How
to
does
be
it
able to tell everything like that we've discussed? How does it feel?
It feels good because there's layers to what we make when we make art, and sometimes I wonder if people pay so much attention to like the surface of the thing that they miss like the depth of what goes into making it.
Yeah.
Like what it costs, personally, like,
Yeah.
to make something, to get there emotionally. Like I think that a lot of what I make, I wonder sometimes if what I make is a spoonful of sugar, but it's to help the medicine go down. And I wonder sometimes if like people don't like read those lyrics closely enough, because if they did, they might be like, oh, wait a second, what did he say there? Like, what is that? And because I am purposefully always trying to sort of like subvert. I'm trying to
Subvert.
I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to manipulate. What I'm doing is I want to give people enough of what they want so that I can say something else. That I can add a new image or a new picture to love or heartbreak or grief or whatever.
It's not even manipulative at all. It's a storyteller.
It's a storyteller, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like I'm giving my version of this very timeless thing. I like being able to talk about my work because and what I'm making, because like, man, I hope people like dig deeper, and I feel like if it takes me talking about it to like make them pay attention to how things are coming together, like the Saint Social record, man, is the most, to me, watertight thing I've ever made in terms of the intent of what it's supposed to be, the way that the track listing is laid out. There's lyrical threads throughout. There's musical threads throughout. Like when I talked about making a concept record or whatever, like it is a concept record, and it's very Death and Rebirth to me, like the Afterlife Parade, the first Afterlife Parade record is the thing I'm the most proud of. But man, this record is like,
oh man, you're hyping it
it's
up.
like neck and neck.
I can't wait to hear it.
But it's like, I had this really funny conversation with a pretty heavy duty manager of like a top 40 artist at the time, and his statement to me about Death and Rebirth was like, he's like, man, you made Viva La Vida before you made Parachutes. And so what he was essentially saying is,
is that a good thing or a bad thing? I can't tell.
To him, it was a bad thing. To him, it was a bad thing because, like, in music, like, your career path is a story as much as your music is a story. Okay. So, like, this is digging really deep into the whole Coldplay catalog thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so Parachutes is a band of college kids who are in a janky club or in your living room playing these really lovelorn, euphoric acoustic songs.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, if you're a kid like me and you see them, like, visually, like, the first images of Chris Martin and those guys look like I did. Baggy pants, T-shirt over your long sleeve. You got, like, your bracelets on, maybe a necklace. Your hair is, like, is like, flipped.
Fussy.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so like, story wise, if you're like, that guy is me, and so then all of a sudden you have this emotional attachment, and like the songs feel like that guy could be playing in my house party.
Yeah.
But then you listen to Rush of Blood, and now that band, like their songs fill an arena.
Yeah.
They went from your, if you're them,
Yeah.
they went from your house party to a theater to an arena.
Mm.
And now their music is more elevated. When you see them visually, they're like more put together.
Yeah.
Like there's more thought that goes into their haircuts. There's
Yeah.
more thought that goes into their press pics. So all of a sudden, because they were the guys who played at your house party and they're like your best friends, you're invested in their success. So now you're like, they made it to the auditorium. Like that's almost like a personal win for you as a fan.
Yeah.
Because their success as a band was something that you had an emotional investment in.
Yeah.
So when he says you made Viva La Vida before you made Parachutes, what he's saying is, how is anybody going to be invested in your story? You're already writing music that could fill a... And P.S., your songs aren't catchy in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
You didn't write a radio hit. I mean, on Parachutes, you've got Yellow, you've got Shiver, you've got Trouble, like you've got Don't Panic.
Yeah.
Like these are three very big, important, songs that were either on the radio or in movies. Like if you see Garden State, that movie with Zach Braff or whatever, and what's her name? Oh my gosh.
Never seen that movie, actually. Never heard of it.
Okay.
Recommend it?
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Please go see
I'll
Garden
put it on my
State.
list.
Yeah. Like Don't Panic is in that movie. Zach Braff has really good... Natalie Portman. That was gonna bother me. Zach Braff and Natalie Portman. His directorial debut. It's a great movie. Great movie.
What's it called?
Garden State.
Kino, when you're watching this, watch Garden State.
Watch Garden State. That movie is a perfect example of a perfect marriage between music and visual. And in fact, I would bet money on this. I feel like in the early aughts, that most of like those indie films were doing that. Like,
really?
Oh man, like go back and watch Little Miss Sunshine. Go back and watch Ruby Sparks. Go back and watch Away We Go. Like some of these like millennial coming of age movies in the aughts, like, and I think it's because like that whole licensing thing was like coming into its own. Like we were starting to see that like music could be a character in the movie, in the film. And now as we've gotten farther down the road, you don't see as many examples of that. I could be totally wrong on that.
Wait, what do you mean? Is it because it's becoming oversaturated?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as a band, how do you punch above your weight to make yourself still unique in a sea of all the other musicians that are trying to get their songs featured?
So I think there's two things at play. Like my approach to that with Sane Social would be different from my approach to that with the other projects that I'm part of, and Afterlife Parade and Bloom in the Bliss. With Afterlife Parade and Bloom in the Bliss, I think that it's more contingent on me like taking a style of music that I'm interested in and just like being the most me in that style. Whereas with Saint Social, it's more about embracing regional DNA.
Okay.
It's more about being so present in the South, on the Gulf Coast, like soaking up the flavors and the feelings and the sound of this place, because there's there's a book called How Music Works by David Byrne, the lead singer of the Talking Heads.
Okay.
And there's a section in the book, a chapter in the book, where he talks about how the space music is created in affects the music and affects the space. He talked about how, like, in the earlier stages of his band, they wrote very percussive music. And that was because they played in a janky club called the CBGB. It was a punk club. So they needed to make music that would fill that space. But then they got bigger. They would try to play that kind of music in like
didn't work.
Like a theater. It didn't work because it was like cacophonous. It would it's hard to it didn't feel good. So they had to make music that was then more open. So less like with drums, like less like So U2 is a band that makes music that fits both spaces, right? So it's almost like on purpose. Like they knew, you know what I'm saying? So
what would the artist, when they're going, it sounds like the artist, you have two options based on what you're saying. The artist will either go on their journey and adapt to their success and growth, or there's an artist like U2 you just mentioned, they automatically knew what they wanted, with just like arena, whatever. Same thing with Queen. I know some of their songs, they became more arena-like, like We Will Rock You.
Yeah.
And AC/DC would, I know it's that. But the point is,
I think
how was that for you? Did you choose, which path did you choose, basically?
Well, I think with Afterlife Parade, I don't think that I was like aware of what I'm telling you right now. Like same manager, different conversation.
Okay.
I went out to LA, and so I won a contest, the JanSport Battle of the Bands, and got in the summer 2010. I got to play at the Forecastle Festival.
Yeah.
So that was like my first big like major achievement, where it was like my parents were like, maybe he's not crazy, you know, like maybe he could actually do this. Yeah. So because of that contest, it gave me an opportunity to like use that as leverage in the business. So I flew out to LA, talking with this guy, and he's a manager, top 40 artist, and he's like, at this point, I had recorded a solo record, and it was good. I felt good about it. I wouldn't say that, like, his feedback was this. He was like, you got a decent voice, pretty good songwriter. He's like, but you don't have a hit. Like, you don't have that one song that, like, is going to put you on the map.
Yeah.
And there's nothing really interesting about you.
Yeah.
You're just your average, like, white pop.
How do you take the
pop
criticism like that?
So what I did was I like, and maybe this is what makes me different from a lot of people.
Yeah.
Is I didn't let that deflate me.
Okay.
What I said was, what is the most interesting thing that I could do? Like, what is the most me thing that I would do?
Yeah.
And then I was like, and this whole hit thing, like, do I care about that? Or do I just want to make something that feels amazing to me? And I was just like, I don't, like, you know, at the time it was like, I think there might be a formula for what he's talking about, but I don't know. I'll say this. I think that there is an art to writing a single. There is a formula for writing a single. It's going to be different for every artist, but it's like the song you use as the business card for the record.
Right.
And I think that you have to have that, at least one song for every record. And if you're really good, maybe four or five for every record, you know? So I eventually started like studying how singles work, you know? But when he said what he said, I went back and I scrapped my solo record.
No way.
And that is when I started Afterlife Parade, because I had
Holy shit.
all these songs that were so like outside of my normal wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But I felt like were interesting because they were me processing a very deep thing in a very interesting way. And so to me, it was like, well, I'm going to work on that. I'm going to work on being the most me I can be. I'm going to dial up what makes me unique and interesting. And I think it's these songs. And so in a matter of speaking, what I did was I shot for the moon. You know, like I created a band and brought in a collective of musicians to become that band before it existed. So that was me like creating aspirationally, making what I wanted to happen. And so I think that's why it sounds like it does. It sounds huge. It's still a huge record. I think it's a timeless record, and I'm really proud of it. But, man, I barely played any of those songs in a space, much less with a band. So it was like record first, band second. So, and then I think one of the big things I learned from that process was that I had wished that the band had existed. And part of my journey with being in a band is like, I wanted to be part of a family. You know, like my parents divorced early. I'm the only son between them. I have siblings, but like they're between my parents and their significant others. And I love my family, but I always felt like out of place because I was bouncing between homes all the time. So I think like Afterlife Parade was my way of like reaching out.
You were trying to find a family.
Trying to find a chosen family to, and the whole conversation with Afterlife Parade from day one was about grief and joy and how to turn grief on its head and you know, is death a part of life, not just like a physical death, but are we dying and being reborn all the time?
Yeah.
And is it something to be celebrated rather than being mourned? And so that was what I was subverting from the beginning. So the sound of it was huge. The sound of it's huge, and I think that's what he was saying.
Yeah,
is that you made something so huge, there's no way you can keep up with it, and there's no way that people can fully attach to it because they haven't been along with you on a journey to get that big.
Especially as you change the stage with your
and
band,
then you don't have a legitimate radio single.
Yeah.
However, the single from that record is what paid my bills for the next 5 years because of micro licensing. That thing was a hit on micro licensing. I think it's still doing stuff.
Holy shit. Congratulations to that.
I mean, yeah, bro. Isn't that amazing? Like, even I'm just like, damn, you know, like, that's crazy. It's humbling. But, so I think, like, with Saint Social, the difference is, it's like I said, I learned the lessons. It's like, you know, we've been playing these songs for a few years now.
Yeah. And
letting people experience them and grow hungry for the recorded form of what they are. And now it's like, we can't wait to put this record out so that people have something they have the souvenir of the live experience, but they also have something to listen to where, man, I can't wait for people to like know our songs well enough to sing them back to us. You know, and the idea of like, you know, people being able to read those lyrics now and know what I'm actually talking about, because their experience up to this point has just been seeing us live for the last couple years, and not having the resource of the recorded form. So the beautiful thing is what's making this different than, you know, Afterlife Parade's formation is that like I'm in a band from the jump, and I'm in a band with friends that I have like decades worth of relationship with, you know, like deep like rooted friendship and love. Brian, the drummer, and we played together as teenagers.
Damn, history, dude. Talk about
Deep history. So this is like us as friends taking our big swing,
Yeah.
you know, and so so there's that, and then Saint Social is the parachutes. It is like I purposefully tried to take those words of, I don't think he was offering to me that at the time as advice. He was just being, a voice from the business, like calling it what it was.
Yeah.
Right. And so now this is me, like, okay, I hear you. I hear you, and you're right. I see what you mean. So let's do my version of what that would be.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you this. This record feels huge, but I feel like, my perspective is that there's at least 3 business cards on this record, and I think all the songs have those choruses that people can sing along to, and I hope they will. I hope they'll like sing them loud and proud, and seriously, and I hope that, for the people who have seen us live so far, that have heard these songs,
Yeah.
that when they've like read those lyrics, that I hope that they'll speak to them, and then for the people that are yet to hear us, I hope they'll dive in, man. And so I think it's kind of the best of all the worlds. It's a record that communicates sonically where we want to go.
Yeah.
Like what hour, like man, I want to play an arena, but I know that, you got to build the story, and I'm okay with that. I think it's beautiful. What ended up happening with Afterlife Parade is we had this huge record. We couldn't get into venues. Like we were struggling, and because I was green, the whole booking thing was something I had, yet to learn. So what ends up happening though, and it's actually like really beautiful, is that we start playing a bunch of house shows. And so we have to strip everything back, which is fine, because at the core of Afterlife Parade is an acoustic guitar, is a voice and an acoustic guitar. And so so it kind of, I started like looking at our band name, and I think it's that Divine Whisper there, and like it's Afterlife Parade. You're like, what does a parade do? It trickles into a city, starts real small, and then it gets built up.
It goes bigger and bigger.
So it's like, so maybe like when we're building relationships, because everything I do is relational, right? Like I want the bands I'm involved to be that really dynamic, intimate connection.
Yeah.
So I was like, if a parade trickles into a city, then it's like every time we play, it should get bigger. So it was like, well, if I could fill a house, I could fill a coffee shop. If I could fill a coffee shop, I could fill a theater. I could fill a theater.
Bigger
I could
and bigger.
And so I was like, okay, so this thing could be built on those really deep connections. It's like, man, you play that house show, and all of a sudden you're having these wonderful conversations, and it makes people want to come back and bring people with them. And so all of a sudden, like with Afterlife Parade, that's what we started doing. We started trying to grow out in every city that we played in. And, that the touring history of Afterlife Parade got cut short, unfortunately. Luckily, the music is still there. And frankly, I'd love one day to take the band on a tour. And it just might need to be in a gap, with Saint Social probably. But I love those songs to get their due. But man, like I learned a lot of lessons, and I think that playing house shows made me a better frontman. So I think like my sort of desire is to make whatever venue I play in feel as big as it is, to make it feel.
But the house shows it's a smaller, intimate space, and you're building that relationship. And once you get bigger, when you build that loyal fan base that have been intimate with you in a environment like that, they'll follow you when, like you said, the parade becomes bigger because they've seen you,
Yeah.
how you are sonically.
Yeah.
When everything's stripped down to the simplest instruments,
Yeah.
they still know that sound will always still be there as you get bigger.
Yeah.
And when you get to the theater, the arena,
Yeah.
you will have your own moment similar to "We Will Rock You."
Amen.
Everyone is just.
Let it be. Let it. Yeah. I mean, I love Afterlife Parade. Grateful for.
Yeah.
We're still making music.
Yeah.
You know, it's right now more of a recording.
Yeah.
Project. But man, all of us talk about, you know, in the current iteration of what it is that we'd love to get the opportunity to get together and like be in a live space, and I think it'll happen. But like we put out a project. Not in 23, but 22.
Yeah.
So the last EP that we just did, and we're working. We'll have something out pretty soon this year, too, with that. So,
Well, okay. All right, guys. Just to let you know, we're almost out of time, but unfortunately we have so much to talk about. But you know what? We'll probably have them on another episode.
Hey,
yeah,
let's do it, man.
Oh yeah. Now, there was one question I would like to get into before we dive into the closing, as well as the bigger picture. Having to explain all of these achievements, I remember you were in a spot where you felt like music was just not in your cards. How were you able to navigate through that? And I would love for you to share with the other people here, because most artists, it doesn't even have to be music, but film, photography, we will have days where we're just like, why am I not getting the results that I want? And we are this freaking close to giving up. So how did you navigate that?
Well, I think that art and life ebb and flow, and you have like moments where you're on top of the hill, and you have moments where you're not, right? And I think the time that you're talking about, I was just in a dark moment in general.
Yeah.
And I was just having to come to terms with like you know, like I think a lot of what I was feeling at the time was connected to how I wanted making music to feel, and how I wanted to connect with people through the medium.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not making music because I necessarily want to be famous. I'm making music because I want to impact the world, impact culture, and I want to connect on a certain level. For some reason, when I'm on stage, I feel the most at home, and I feel like, and not like I don't feel like at home, but there's like a part of me that is accessed, that when that's not there, I don't feel like me, the most me, right? And I want to share that feeling with other people on a certain level, and that's why, like, I aspire to play bigger venues, and I hope that more people get on board with what I'm making, knowing that on a certain level there's like a divine aspect to it, right? And you know, I know for some people they don't want to look at it like that, and that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. But what I mean is like the aspect of it where, like, for some reason what I'm making is elevated in a particular way that is visible enough for more than enough people to find it.
Yeah.
You know, to have a fan base that you'll go to different cities and people will show up, and you can make a living, right? Like, off of putting on shows where people really love what you're making, and it resonates with them. And so I think at the time I was looking at my path and coming to terms with, would I be okay with strictly like making music for the visual format but not having a live presence? And I for me, like, playing live is where it's at. Like, I just love it. I just love building a set list, taking people on a journey, feeling that reciprocal joy, you know, being able to smile at someone in the crowd and, you know, them smile back. Like my band, we have a song called Iconista, and it's I don't really want to give away too much what the song is about.
Yeah.
But I will say that when I sing it, one of my favorite things to do is to, like, you know, point out a lady and just like smile at her and make her feel good, you know, make her feel like an iconista, you know, like
I can what?
iconista.
Oh, okay, iconista. Okay.
Yeah, I think in Portuguese it's iconista, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Yeah, fact check me on that.
Okay.
But I'm calling it iconista, so iconista, you know,
Iconista.
like a female icon.
Yeah.
You know, so in the record in the Saint Social world, there's something more going on there. I want to save that. I want to save.
NDA, guys.
I want to save that. I want to save
NDA.
that. Not ready to talk about that yet.
Of course.
But anyway, but man, I think that what inevitably happened to me is I got so in the licensing game, so deep into it, that I was missing out on the people connection. You know, that my focus was writing and producing, and like it being so online, and it felt less connecting to me.
Oh, that's the iron.
That's kind of an irony of making.
Speaking of the irony, I remember reading in your bio, you love to put ironies in your songs. So
I do.
The fact that we brought up the irony, that's what I let you know that I read that part.
That's cool, man. That's really cool that you picked up on that. Yeah. In my songs, I like to play with, like, there's a song called Iron and Wood, and the chorus says, you know I love you, don't be shy. We're going to set this whole wide world on fire.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's me being like, is the fire like a healthy relationship, or are we burning everything down because the passion is just like, we're just like working on each other? You know what I'm saying?
It sounds like you love the duality of both sides of every story.
Yes. Because isn't that being human?
Yeah, you
Like,
can't have it's black and white. Or just
Right.
It's like that.
Grief and joy are two, you know, they're two sides of the track.
Yeah.
And they run together, right? So for me, that's me trying to live that, to understand that, to how do these two things work together. So I think it's really fun to write choruses that could go both ways. Yeah. So I spend a fair amount of time like messing with that.
So going back to what you said, online you felt
I just felt
disconnected.
so disconnected, and so I think it was just like another round of processing.
Yeah.
It's not quite going like I hoped, because I'm not playing out as much as I want to, or connecting with people. I was feeling like unknown, feeling like I was disappearing. So I think what's beautiful is that things picked up with Saint Social, and so like it. So then the other piece of that is I think, like, as artists, we have to get down to the motivation, our motivation for making. You know, is your motivation to be what if only 10 people
Showed up.
like what you made or showed up? Would that be good enough for you? And so all of us, is it good enough that you get to play with your friends and make this music, right? So I think that all of us have different thresholds for what we're satisfied with as far as what is success. And so you have to know, like, you have to find that. And so I think for me at the time, I'd kind of hit a certain threshold, and I was judging, like, if all I'm doing is getting to make this and put it out into the world, and I don't get to do the live thing, or can I find another way to do the live thing, right? Am I okay with that? And then combined with just, I was like going through a rough time in my life personally, with stuff that has nothing to do with music.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like wrestling with some really big questions, and wrestling with my life path, and a lot of different things going on at the time. So I think all of it compacted. So I think that as an artist, you just have to take inventory. And man, I think we also have to be okay with reinventing ourselves, and knowing like where you're at in your journey. Like I'm married with 4 kids now, and I'm at a stage in my life where music is always going to be a part of my life, but pending how things go in the next few years, I might need to reposition that thing in my life. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. What it means is that maybe this is my outlook, is that I get to do something else.
Yeah.
I have to go back to like my values as a person that are deeper than me being on a stage. So like values like I want to travel and I want to see the world, and I want to do it with my family with me, and I want to like get to meet new people, and I want to like experience new people, and I want to like ask questions and be curious about things. So then all of a sudden that value dictates the vehicle for making that happen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop me from making my art. It just repositions art's role in my values being embodied.
The hardest, well, I love what you just said, because the hardest part about reinventing ourselves is that the first thing we need to do is be able to accept that we need to let things go.
So, I think this is where, like, for me,
It's hard.
It's
dude.
hard. I believe in a death and rebirth.
Oh my God. It's all
engine.
connecting.
Yeah, it's that's
all
an engine.
connecting.
That's for me. That's like part of my like spiritual journey.
Yeah.
I see that as a rhythm and a pattern in the world. So if I see it in the world, I know it's in me too. And so, I choose my spiritual practices to be more in tune with that happening in my heart. And I think like at the time that you and I were talking, I was in a place of grief. And so I was processing the grief and the loss of, maybe I need to let this go. And I think it's okay to let things go. It just so happened that sometime after that time that you and I were hanging out, that a second wind came into my life, and it was almost like I got one more in me. I got one more go at this. And not to put too much pressure, not to put too much pressure, but I also think like with Saint Social at this moment, that things are happening in this band and for this band that haven't happened in my previous projects.
Yeah.
So there's a vibe or a synergy or a flow that we're hitting that just feels like, man, like this is really good, and I think this is gonna get really good.
You got to keep that parade going.
And it's just like, you got to keep the parade going. And so so with Saint Social, like I expect, to hit some mile markers that I haven't hit yet. And another, I'll say this too, man. Part of me wanting to hit those mile markers is because I want to be helpful to other artists.
Yeah.
And I know that part of being helpful is hitting those mile markers to be able to pass on wisdom or experience back down the line. And so, like I said, everything that I've done is communal. Everything has been me reaching out. Everything that I've made has been to give back. Everything I've made is about a bigger purpose in me. And that's just the kind of art that I want, that I've always felt that I made and want to make.
It's a hell of a legacy to uphold, and I think
I hope so. I hope so. I hope we'll talk in the near future, and it'll be like, whoa, remember that one time we sat and talked about
and
this?
we did that,
and we did this, and we did this. Yeah, man. Of course.
I think.
Yeah. Why not? Why not me? That's another thing. Why not me?
Oh my God, I relate. I love that.
Why not?
Words.
Like, why not? You know. I think like, you know, not to get hokey, but like, I think sometimes you just sense it. Like it's my turn. You know, and it's not like a entitled thing. It's like, no, man, I did the work on me, and I invested that in making something that is like true, like very true, the truest I can get.
Yeah.
Like it's like the bedrock of my DNA. You know, like this is the close, you know, like I said, this is the closest I've been to like, I mean, this band sounds like I feel. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
you did the work to get to.
Yeah. And
there.
and I'm not taking credit for the whole package, because it's the, you know, the four of us or whatever that have made this thing, right? But it's like, man, I'm with great friends, and our history is going into this music. You know, the way that I see the world is in this music. You know, what I hope for is in this music.
Yeah.
What I hope to pass on is in this music, and I'm crazy enough to believe that there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more records, you know, that
are just waiting.
just need to get made. And I, you know, like, and I'm writing all the time. You know, I'm also a very prolific guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm always thinking ahead, and you know, I try to find the balance between being present and thinking ahead. You know, I think that's a challenge, and I think that in the moment that you and I were talking, sharing, and I was kind of having a hard time, is because I was in a moment where, for a guy that constantly dreams ahead and sees a picture, it's like I had lost it. It's like that picture wasn't there, and I felt desperate, and I felt broken, and it was almost like I needed. There was a spiritual muscle that I didn't have, and all the ones that I'd used before didn't work, not in this space.
Yeah.
And so I was at a loss, and so I needed a different kind of comfort. I needed a different kind of wisdom, a different kind of energy to step in and carry me. And I wouldn't say that every step forward has been easy since then.
Yeah.
But I would say that I feel more surrendered and trusting in the process of becoming who I am right now today. And I think that's another thing that we have to let the art do. You know what, man? Sometimes I think we have to let it just be good. Did you show up? Did you try to film something today? Did you try to scribble something today? You know, did you try to just draw a little bit? And I think like when you're grieving, like when you're walking through grief, that I love you sometimes is enough. Just let it be enough. And I've had to learn that too. That not every lyric is going to be $1 million lyric. And sometimes you need the sometimes you need the 2-cent lyric to set up the $5 lyric.
That's a great one.
Sometimes you need that. You need the basic one to be the setup for the big punchline.
Yeah.
And I think like, what if sometimes what our art is the same? You know, like I need to get this one song done, and it's not going to be the one I release, but I needed to do it because of the next one.
Yeah.
Because something about what I learned in this one is what the next one needs to be a banger. And that's okay too. Bro, I like my phone is full of voice memos. I have folders on my desktop with stuff nobody will ever hear.
Yeah.
It's me riffing, working through something to get to the one thing. And that's okay. It's good. And I think like in the moment that you and I were talking, I was just in that moment where what I needed to do was just be good with good. Yeah.
You know, that all of that reminds me of the this quote that I read, is that especially why I like the words that you use, "Why not me?" There is this thing that I read, which was the most terrifying thing at the end of your life is being at your deathbed, and as your life is slipping away, the last thing you are gonna start, the you see your mass memories, everything, but then there's one more thing left that you're gonna see, and those are the ideas and the gifts that you were imbued, and ideas are now gonna die with you, and that's the scariest thing. You don't want to leave them with you when you pass.
Yeah.
And the fact that those ideas start, it's like they're all standing before you, and they're gonna ask you, why not me?
Why not me? Wow.
Why didn't you give me enough time
Yeah.
to become something great?
Right.
And they're all looking at you.
Right.
And how are you going to process that? That's a scary thought.
It is a scary thought. I think it's also like, man, like I have things outside of music I want to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like I have book ideas, I have movie ideas. I don't know. Like but I'm also like I'll jot things down about those things in one of my containers. Just I think like in my lifestyle, the way that I've tried to build my life, to be sensitive to the rhythm and the timing of things.
Yeah.
I can sense like, you know what? This stuff's gonna happen. It's just not right now. And it's not that I'm devaluing those things. I'm actually valuing them more. Because I'm sensitive to it coming. Like it's coming.
Yeah.
Like and like sometimes ruminating on an idea for an extensive amount of time makes it more interesting. Like, and so there's some things that I've held on to for a really long time. And when it's time for those things to come out, because of the way that I've been chewing the cud, like what a cow does, chews on the cud, that when I spit that thing out, man, it's gonna be like
it's gonna be really good,
dude. Yeah. There's stuff that that I planned with Afterlife Parade that's actually not gonna happen with Afterlife Parade, but I think I'm almost positive is gonna happen with Saint Social.
Yeah.
And it's better. It's better that it's happening with this vehicle. So knowing when like you think like the idea is gonna go with this thing, but it's actually better that it happens with this other thing. Man, like I had to really like let go of Afterlife Parade at a certain point.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that band was done. So to come back years later to reform it and put out that EP was huge. Now the its new form is very different.
Yeah.
And I had to release my ideas of what it was meant to be. But that being said, man, I'm so proud of it, and like it's beautiful. It's like, God, it's better. And then who's to say that some of those dreams for it won't happen? But maybe it's like,
it's just in this incubation period.
Yeah,
right now.
I have to do something with these other things first. So maybe not everything is lost.
And also circling back to what you said, maybe the reason why it's not ready, or it's that you're working on other projects where it will provide you that specific thing that
Platform
for that song that needed that component.
Yeah,
so,
finances or we don't. I don't think we always understand how like I'm kind of like the way that I work on songs is probably the way that I would be a painter if I was. Where like you have like multiple canvases in the room, and you start doing one with you start working on one, and you get to this point where it's like you're kind of stuck. So you go to the next thing and you start creating something new. So all of a sudden you've got like 4 things in progress, but by working on those other things, it reinforms
the first one.
And so I work on songs a lot like that, like where they're like in different, there are different points in the process, and by working on multiple things at once, it sort of reinforms how I see each of them, and then like I said, like I always I write for albums. That's just my way.
Yeah.
And I know there's like a lot of debate about that today. Like, is the album like is it obsolete? And I just don't care.
There's no need to get caught up in that.
Yeah, I believe in the art of writing great singles, but if all you have is singles, like especially if you're putting on a live show, like you need that $2 song to set up the $5 just as much as you need the $2 lyric to set up the $5 lyric, right? And
so
that doesn't mean that just because it's a $2 song that it doesn't have value.
Yeah,
it does. Because you're trying to bring people on a journey, and you need to change the palate. You got to have a palate cleanser. It's like appetizers and main dishes
course
and
sort.
Yeah, man. So like, I want that in a record, and I want that in my show, and I look at songs and know like this is a deep cut song, but man, do I freaking love it. And it's going to be great in this one spot, and I need it to do this thing. Yeah. And so like, we can look at all of our projects like that too. They all have value. It's just a very specific value, and it doesn't make them
any less worth.
Yeah.
It's just there. There's a value in.
So
that.
it's no different than being like, working filmmaker. Like, I know that there are a lot of wedding filmmakers out there who want to make their big, Sundance film, right? And maybe they struggle with feeling like they're in a rut making those wedding films, right?
Yeah.
But I would imagine if it's anything like, writing songs and being a working songwriter, and, depending on like how you're licensing music, because it's all different. Like, what if you're learning things in making those films that propels that big film that you want to make, So I just think we have to remind ourselves of what we're learning in the work for hire type of thing. And like, are we allowing those skills to form us as artists? Like, you do something repetitively enough, sure, it becomes easy, and then you've got to do like you just
got to do the work to get there.
Yeah. And you gotta what do they call it, when you're working out and you change your workout up, it's muscle confusion.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Muscle confusion. You got to do like an artistic muscle confusion. You got to like change it up. Throw yourself in the deep end somehow.
And you can't just stop either, or else that muscle will start having like an atrophy.
Yep.
You just got to keep practicing.
Yeah. So sometimes, like, take stock of like what you're doing and enjoy it and see the value in it, and then find a way to throw in some muscle confusion. I don't know if any of that's helpful, but I hope so.
All right. So, man, dude, we're gonna have you on another episode.
Cool, man.
It still didn't feel like we just barely scratched the surface, honestly. What the? Okay. All right. Now we're as much as we would like to learn more, we're gonna have to go into the closing. And guys, don't forget to DM me or DM Quinn to let him go back in the next episode.
Okay.
All right. So closing. We're gonna have this, and then we're gonna be done. Wow. So, looking back on your music career so far, what is only one piece of advice or wisdom that you wish you had known when you started? Out of all the things you mentioned, from having that $2 song to get to the $5 song, and being able to stick it out when you're grieving, there's so many things you have said. But what is one advice you wish you had known when you started out? And also, one more thing you did mention about you were prioritizing on record over band. Now you wished you had put band first because you wanted to have that sense of family. Now going back to the question, what is one thing, a piece of advice you wish you had known so that everyone who wants to be a musician can learn from?
I would go back to what ultimately that manager in LA was trying to communicate to me. That really own what makes you unique. And I think that the way that happens is by doing the work.
Okay.
Really getting to know yourself through, spiritual practices or great therapy or journaling or even like allowing people that you trust in your life to help you see. Sometimes you need outside sources to help you see yourself, like what makes you different from everybody else. And once you get just even like a sliver of that, to begin to shave away like your influences. Don't throw them out, right? Like there's a reason you're drawn to your influences. In fact, you might need to like really sit down and get to the bottom of why you like certain things and what that tells you about you. And so once you really like own you, and then you create from that place of pure voice,
And you find your own sense of joy.
and you find your own joy in it. Yeah, because man, you should enjoy you.
Yeah.
You should enjoy you. You should love you, and you should make from that place of loving yourself. Whatever that looks like.
So find your joy, guys. Okay? Happiness is temporary, but joy, it's a constant thing that you always have in your life, that no matter how things get hard, you can always have that to fall back on.
Yeah, man.
So, fuck. I wish we had more time. Okay, so for those that want to follow you, where can people find you on social media platforms?
At Quinn Erwin, so QuinnErwin. I almost wanted to go like T-I-double-G-er,
Huh?
like Tigger, Q-I double and, like, no, I'm sorry. That was wild.
I could that probably went over my head, but when we're editing this, I'll
If you're
probably
into Pooh, like you like the character Winnie the Pooh,
yes,
his buddy Tigger.
oh
Yeah,
yes,
T-I-double-G-er.
Tigger,
That
yeah.
spells Tigger.
yeah.
Q-I
Yeah,
double
that was
N.
Clover, right?
Yeah, I was messing around.
But okay, well, now that's all the platforms except. Well, did you know his website is on Tumblr or hosted by whatever? You know what we said.
It probably needs to get updated big time, man. Yeah.
Now here's the last message. What message would you like to leave to our audience, especially for those that draw inspiration from your career and your achievements after watching this video? What is one message that you want to give to them?
I would just say that like it's such a honor and a privilege to be here, to be heard and to be seen and known. And I hope that what I makes people feel seen and known. Like maybe somehow, me owning me
Yeah.
also makes people feel like they can like be themselves, right? And so to me it's like not only something I just love to do, but it's like an honor. It feels like a privilege, pleasure to like make things that hopefully give people that sense of love and hope and peace and all the good stuff, about themselves, and about the world and about future and about like just existing in a world. And obviously it's a complicated world. It's hard traveling through this life, right? But my belief is that the world and the history of the world bends toward love, and so I hope that people feel that when they connect with me or listen to what I'm making or seeing, and then from there, I just hope people go and do the same for themselves. Go make stuff that impacts people, that reveals beauty, and reveals how wonderful life can be, and not in the sense of like escapism. I'm not into that per se. I mean, I binge Netflix just like
every other people
everybody else, right?
Yeah,
but
else.
I think the art that speaks to me the most is art that reveals even the beauty and pain. And so like I think I want to see more art like that out there, whatever that is, in film or music or photography. There's just so much beauty to discover, truth. So much truth to find. Like Keats, the poet Keats said, "Truth is beauty, beauty is truth. That's all you need to know."
And we have all these chaotic noises around the world, but what makes it more bearable and more easy to consume is the fact that we as artists have the ability to condense all of them into one piece of physical object. It could be audible, it could be anything, but the fact that we have that ability to do that is a gift.
It is a gift. Art is a mirror, and
Yeah.
and like, maybe sometimes we get to choose what we reflect back. And so, what I'm hoping people see when they look at the mirror that I'm building is like them as beauty. Them, like I hope they see how beautiful they are, because that's what I see when I look out from the stage. Is I see incredible people, like people that are love and hope and peace and joy, and I've always tried to make music that is affirmational. I hope they feel affirmed. So
They just need to feel seen and heard, and I think that starts with discovering the right place. And I think your music, Quinn, I think when you reach that certain amount of people, that's when you have created your parade, and that parade will eventually culminate in the whole goddamn arena.
Man, that I would love nothing more. That would be a lot of fun.
You will. You got a second win. Make it count.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this type of content, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And we're gonna have more banger episodes like this, more insightful information like this, as well as conversations about hard topics. Because you are the first guest to have such an in-depth conversation about something that's uncomfortable to talk about. So I really, really want to thank you for that. You're like the sixth guest so far, but you're the first one to do that. So I really, really appreciate you being open about that.
Thank you, man. That means a lot to me, and thank you for the opportunity to go there. Thank you for going there with me. That's really cool.
The world is painful, but we need to start creating our joy. All right, hit record. I'll see you all in the next episode. You want to say goodbye, Quinn?
See you guys later.
And cut.